When we say once in a species opportunity, that's no kidding. An event like this occurs so incredibly rarely. When people look back on today at $102,000, they'll go, why weren't you out working 7 days a week to accumulate this asset? Lending is modern day slavery. Full stop, drop the mic, Elvis has left the building. There is no question about that. I know without a shadow of a doubt how banking works. I know how evil and corrupt it is, and I know it's been happening for centuries. There is so much that is hiding inside of the thing called Bitcoin. It's almost like if you were to think of nuclear fusion and the energy that is stored in an atomic bomb. That's how powerful Bitcoin is. And the great leveling is, you fucking prove to me that you're telling me the truth beyond any doubt whatsoever, that you are who you say you are and that you did what you said that you did. And then I will exchange my energy with you. That's the game. That's the mystery. Not what's the answer? Give me the answer. I want the answer. No, you have to do the work. You have to show me proof of work. Knowledge is not free, and it isn't painless either.
Today on The Signal, I'm joined by Greg Whitaker, a retired mortgage lender who's been holding Bitcoin since 2013. He's lived through every cycle with quiet conviction. This is a conversation about the long game and what it means to truly hodl. Greg, it's so great to have you on The Signal.
Honor to be here. It's been a while since I've dusted off the video conversation about this, but I'm glad you reached out to me. We live in exciting times, and that's an understatement, as you well know.
Yeah, so there's so much I want to get into. I don't think I've ever talked to someone who's been in Bitcoin since 2013, over a decade of conviction. So can you just walk us through your journey and how it's felt to hold through every cycle and to be here now and to see Bitcoin holding steady at over 100K?
Yeah, basically I was podcasting around, it was 2013, obviously. I've been podcasting for about 5 years. No audience growth, just my hobby. And somewhere, I don't know who it was, somewhere on YouTube probably, or on a podcast, I heard about Bitcoin. So I thought, that's interesting. Let me just do a little episode, not to try to be the expert, but to just say, hey, I bought a piece. This is what I had to go through, and this is how it went. That's how I found out about it. And I thought, well, I'll give it a try. So about a month ago, I dug out that audio. It's not on the Ethernets anymore. It's just sitting in my computer. I was like, I don't even remember what the price was, but I'm pretty sure it was less than $200 a coin.
Wow.
Oh my God. There's a lot in between then and now. I'll just let you decide how much you want to know. But I bought that, and I can tell you why I was convicted enough to hang on to it. I heard one word when I ran into Bitcoin and heard someone talking. I heard one word, and that word was decentralized. That's all it took for me to go, this is worth looking at. This is worth considering, because I knew that if this ecosystem or this community or this whatever it is that Bitcoin is can keep the wolves of centralization at the door long enough for this thing to blossom, it was worth my time and energy. And holy mackerel, has a lot changed since then. So insanity.
It surprised you that it's actually made it this far and how it's been so anti-fragile?
I don't want to say surprised, because when I first bought it, I just forgot about it. I didn't really pay attention to it for a while. And then when it went to 70, a banker friend of mine called and said, dude, are you retired yet? I'm like, no, I answered the phone at the bank. Are you kidding me? But I want to say there was the cynic in me still back then, but I'm like, this is a just in case. I hadn't even read the white paper at that point. Maybe I didn't. I don't really remember. But I knew if this thing makes it, there's no telling what it'll do. I didn't know if it was going to go to six figures, what it was going to do. I didn't know anything about cold storage. I wasn't doing any of the conviction that needs to be done to really understand what it was. The one word, decentralization, was enough for me to just hang on to it. So I just forgot about it. And then I don't know when it was, whenever it went to 70 and I got that phone call, I'm like, I need to start getting a little bit more interested in this. And slowly over time, the interest has done nothing but intensify. And I'd say the time that I've really gone all in terms of the conviction of studying is in the last couple of years, for sure.
So what was it about the term decentralized that made you realize how powerful it could be? Was there something in your past that made you see the problems with the centralized authority structures?
Yeah. So I got into mortgage banking literally off the street with zero experience right around the 2000 timeframe. And I knew through my own personal study, if you're in banking at the level, I was at the retail level, like a regular bank, regular people, loan officers, tellers, that kind of thing. If you want to know anything about how money really works, you're not going to learn it at the bank. You have to learn it on your own. So I'd already had a solid 13 years of in and out studying of really how the plumbing works. Not at the Wall Street level. That's pretty technical and pretty heavy. And you can only get what's out there. I didn't know anyone. I wasn't close enough to that ecosystem. But the internet, 2000 was a starting point for me. I've been online since 1998, almost every day of my life since then. So I was lucky in that. I learned about the internet very early, not from an investing standpoint, but from a user standpoint. So I lost my train of thought. The decentralized. When I learned about Bitcoin and heard that one word, I already knew through 13 years of study how corrupt banking is at the highest levels. And this is not conspiracy. This is simply business. And these banking families have been around for centuries. There's nothing poo-poo about that anymore. And the thing I love about the Bitcoin community is I've never heard anybody, any community talk about that part of the equation more in my entire life. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. These people aren't just a bunch of weekend warriors, day traders on some coin. These people understand what exactly the problem is because they've spent a lot of time studying it. So I felt not a finally, but just, hey, I'm definitely going to listen to these people. And I love it. There's people that know less than I do, and there's people that know more than I'll ever know. And that's beautiful. It's just this whole ecosystem. But I understand that centralization of power in banking is the reason why we're in the mess that we're in, not only as a nation in the US, but worldwide. It is a giant Ponzi scheme. And I'll say this without apology. Lending is modern day slavery. Full stop, drop the mic. Elvis has left the building. There is no question about that.
So do you feel like other people in the mortgage lending industry know what you know? Or was this from you doing outside research that you were able to draw these conclusions?
Yeah. It was mostly outside research. I'm sure there's people in the business that understand like how the Fed really operates. And it's not a nefarious thing where a bunch of in shadows people meet around a table. It's just the way banking works. And it has evolved, and the internet really put that evolution on warp speed. And now my God, AI is with us, digital storage of everything. They want to, oh my goodness. If you've ever heard anybody say, oh, they're going to get rid of cash, at this point, they don't really need to because it's not a threat at all because of the digitization. But there's just so much to unpack. I don't talk about this stuff, but to one person, and that's my uncle up in Alaska. And he doesn't talk to very many people. He's in his mid 60s about this like really high level stuff. He said, you're the only person that I really talk to. And he said, I keep my head down online because they're building social credit scores, but I won't get into that. I don't have any banker buddies that are into this, to be honest with you. So I guess that would be the answer to your question.
So with these issues becoming more out there with the internet, like you said, why do you think it is that more people aren't aware of these issues? Because they affect everyone's life on such a profound level. So why is it still so secretive, and why do people still think it's like a conspiracy when we talk about these things?
I really thought about this last night when I was laying down to go to bed, just pondering. I had looked at some of the things that we may or may not talk about, and I thought about this. When I got started in Bitcoin, I was in my mind, there's going to be this libertarian utopia one day. And I have to be real honest with myself. That's not going to happen. So I think there's going to be a coexist space that we enter into. I don't know when that is, but it's like fiat's not going to go away. It's been around for a very long time. Its role may change, but to answer your question, and this is one of the biggest things that I think about, and it's beautiful that you brought it up. Okay, Greg, what is it going to look like in 5 years or 10 years? What do you hope it'll look like in 5 or 10 years? Money is in our DNA. Dollar bills are a global thing. You have to have them to trade in petroleum. Up until the last couple of years, that's changing. That's what BRICS is all about. But for me to expect people to just go, I'm not going to use or trust dollars anymore. Something major has to happen. And I don't know what that thing is, if it'll be cumulative or if there will be spiked events, as we would call them. I think it's going to be a combination of both, because ultimately, and I know you know this, money is only built on one thing because it is fully detached from physicality at this point. That's what the notes are. They don't match gold anymore. Pre-1971, for the most part, they did. Post-1971, they don't anymore. This is built on nothing but one thing and one thing only, and that's trust. We're not even talking about truth anymore. We're talking about purely trust. So if I'm the person doing the printing and the dastardly whatever it is, if I can keep enough people trusting me as what I like to call the priest in the temple, the money changers, as Jesus got angry, supposedly, right? Nothing's really changed. If you look at the building, the Federal Reserve, it's a temple. It's got the pillars. It's got the look of a temple. That's in our DNA. I think that's culturally, at least in Western culture. It may be different in Eastern culture. I don't know. But generally in Western culture, money's in our DNA. So I don't think there's going to come a time where it's fiat stops and Bitcoin begins with mass adoption. I think it's going to slowly over time change, hopefully, into the orange universe that you and I would like to see. And maybe one day, dollar bills or paper checks, they're inconvenient, but some people still like to use them because they're useful. So I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know change is a coming and there's nothing we can do to stop it. That's for sure. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Yeah, no, that was great. And yeah, I think about this all the time too, about how quickly we're going to see change, because it seems like it's inevitable and it could potentially happen tomorrow. Things could explode tomorrow and we could see change very rapidly.
Yes.
Or it could take hundreds of years. And I think that's what Bitcoiners struggle with, is that not knowing, but knowing the eventual outcome, but not knowing the time frame. I think that's a thing that a lot of Bitcoiners struggle with. But that's actually a low time preference mindset, is wanting things to be the way you want it to be instead of just allowing things to unfold. And that's what this Bitcoin journey has taught me too. It's helped me develop my consciousness and develop my presence, in addition to just learning about money. And I think that's what draws you to it as well.
I never thought of this term until just now, listening to what you just said. Do you know any part-time Buddhists?
No.
They all seem to be 100% all in. To me, you can be a part-time Bitcoin person. You can, because it can serve you. But when we're talking about the level of consciousness that you're alluding to me, it's all, I shouldn't say it's all or none. I get to choose how much I want this thing to help me change. And this is an absolute inside job. And diamond hands, we know what that means. It means those that will not be shaken from their stack. And I have days where I'm like, maybe this is just all a bunch of crap. Not hard thinking, not sleepless nights, but just doubt. And I'm like, Greg, go back to 2013 when you bought that first time. Was it a fluke that you hung on to it? Maybe a little bit. But I do know this, when it started running up, the only thing I ever spent any of that Bitcoin on was I wanted to buy my first gold eagle. I bought a 1 ounce gold coin, not an antique, not a numismatic coin, a 1 ounce eagle. I still have that today. Other than that, the only thing I've ever spent out of that stack, that first little stack that I bought, is paying the Bitcoin way to teach me about security, cold storage, and air gapped. And I'll promote them all day long, and I'm not affiliated with them. They are amazing. And whoever you decide out there in listener land to help you learn that, you better get your shit together pretty quick, because I'm here to tell you, people that hold this asset, it's going to get weird out there. It's going to get, people don't understand how rare this thing is. And when the common man understands how rare this thing is, two things will happen, in my opinion. It won't matter, that it won't mean anything to them, or they'll go, wait a minute. So security is going to be a whole different ball game in the next 3 to 5 years. Hell, sooner than that. But I don't know where I was going with that. I really get off in the weeds sometimes.
Yeah, no, I'm really enjoying this conversation. Your insights are incredible, being in the space for so long. Yeah, and I love this energy that you're putting out there about how privileged we are to be going through such a monumental shift in society. This is fundamentally altering the direction of society, and here we are at the very beginning of it. How blessed and lucky are we?
I'm 56. My wife is 74. I have no children by choice. She was not able to have children from cancer in her early 20s, roughly, but she did get to raise her nephew from the time he was a little baby. That is her son. But I don't know if you have any children, if you ever will have any children, but I'll never know what that is. But I do know this, to be able to look back on one's life and say, and hear these words, Grandpa, what was it like when Bitcoin was less than $100,000? They just think it's black and white before toothpaste had fluoride in it or something like that. And maybe you're able to tell them that. And I don't want to be the one personally in my sitting on the couch communing with the architect of the universe and go, Greg, you had a good thing and you effing blew it. That's not what I want to happen. That is absolutely the regret that I do not want to have in my life. Now, I don't have any heirs children-wise. I do have family. I got nieces and nephews. And I need to figure that out in the next couple of years. What are you going to do? You die. Obviously, my wife is my heir. But after that, if she passes before me, what are you going to do with it? I may die with it. I may die with my Bitcoin. I haven't made that decision just yet, but I'm not really worried about that because if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, it is what it is. But and here's the thing. There's a guy named Bob Proctor. He's an old motivational speaker. He died in the last couple of years. He said something in one of his lectures that has stuck with me. He said, I was in the right place at the right time many times in my life, but I didn't know that I was in the right place at the right time. That's what Bitcoin was for me. And anyone that feels that way, yay. And anyone who has it and holds it and who doesn't feel that way, yay too. But I understood when the knock came on that door of opportunity, because if I weren't and you weren't in the correct mindset, enough of a mindset to understand what it is that you're looking at and what it is that you're hearing, it means nothing. That this is so powerful, what we're talking about right now. And God bless us. Maybe one day you put this on YouTube and in 100 years, they look back and go, oh my God, look at these old films. This stuff, digitally speaking, if the internet is around in 500 years, there's a potential that people will hear this conversation. That is astounding. And they look back and go, my God, these were the founding fathers, or maybe the second wave of the people that benefited from the founding fathers. Whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. This is about heaven. This is about hell. This is about earth. It's about everything, redemption, spiritual work, all of it. It's amazing.
You just gave me goosebumps with what you just said about people watching this 500 years from now.
It's
never
amazing.
thought about that. That's an insane concept to wrap my head around. But I think about that a lot, about the future generations, like my grandkids, sitting down and talking to them and them asking, if I hadn't bought Bitcoin, and they ask, Grandpa, why didn't you buy Bitcoin? You were right at that age. And then what are you going to tell them? What are people going to tell their grandkids? That they could have fundamentally altered the course of the generational course of their whole lineage, and they just decided to not look into it. That motivates me a lot, to learn as much as I can. And yeah, it's insane to think about stuff like that.
I will say this, in the same vein of what you just shared. My mother passed in 2006. My natural father passed in 2008, and my stepfather passed about 2 or 3 years ago. When my stepfather passed, I and my siblings, we inherited a little bit of money. It wasn't like crazy life-changing money, but we did inherit a little bit of money. And this is how I felt about that money. Greg, if you piss this money away, you will be dishonoring your mother's entire working life, as well as your stepfather's entire working life. That's how I felt about that wealth. And that's how I feel about Bitcoin. When we say once in a species opportunity, that's no kidding. Once in not one lifetime. Right? An event like this occurs so incredibly rarely. When people look back on today at $102,000, they'll go, why weren't you out working 7 days a week to accumulate this asset? And it's different for everybody. That's the beauty of it. There's no cut and paste.
So what would you say to people now who are starting to get more curious about it, but they feel like they missed the boat because it's already 100K?
I would say it's really simple. Think of $1. You look at that dollar and you go, I don't have what it takes to earn that dollar. I don't have the education to earn that dollar, metaphorically speaking. I don't have the whatever it is. You may not be able to earn that dollar. You may not be able to convince somebody to pay you that dollar, but you can earn pieces of that dollar. And there's 100 of those units in that dollar. Bitcoin is the same way. There's 100 million units in one Bitcoin. And you can literally buy $1 of Bitcoin on I've seen it on an exchange. I don't know if it was in the US or not. You can walk into a smoke shop and see a Bitcoin ATM machine, stick your dollar in there, and I'm assuming you get a paper wallet printed out with the little scan code on it. I had one of those back in the day. You want to ask me about that later, I'll tell you that story. But you can buy units of this. So think of it as a savings technology. It's no different than getting your paycheck, holding out a portion. I still hold out 10% of my paycheck and sticking it in the bank. It's the same thing. For a starting point to a young person, that would be the way I would approach it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your paper wallet story. Where did you go to buy Bitcoin where they gave you a paper wallet?
I originally bought, I'm looking back through my old passbook from 2013 timeframe. I think I originally bought on Mt. Gox because there weren't very many exchanges that were I'd even heard of Mt. Gox and maybe one other. And I wrote down my password in there. This is before they blew up, obviously. And I think I bought it from there. You had to call an 800 number. I had to go to Walmart, get a MoneyGram, and then get online. And it was clunky. And I'm like, man, this is a pain in the ass. But I'm like, nope, I'm going to do this podcast episode. I'm going to do what it takes. And then I did that. But it sat there after I forgot about it on the exchange it may have been when it started going up. And I ran into this guy on the internet. God bless this man for saying this 1,000 times. He's a silver expert. His name is Bix Weir. Thank you, Bix Weir, if you're hearing my voice. And he was into different coins, a few different coins, trade, buy low, sell high, which was fine. But his expertise is silver. And he studied that market for decades. But when he talked about Bitcoin, this is the one thing that he said: you better get your coins off the exchange. And it stuck with me, just like the word decentralized stuck with me. And then one day I said, okay, you just need to do this. So I went back onto his website, listened to a couple of his videos, and he talked about how to make a paper wallet. So I literally downloaded a piece of software, disconnected my computer from the internet. I didn't know that's what air gapped was at the time. Used a random number generator, encrypted whatever, and created my own keys. I did not understand really what I was doing, but I understood enough to be okay doing it. And then based on that, I printed out the paper wallet, which you'll still see them now, probably like at the ATM, I'm assuming, if that's what they give you as a receipt. I don't know. And all I had to write on there, private key, public key, because it was two different QR codes. And I'm like, I had to understand, and getting online and moving it off of that paper wallet onto a ledger, which I had for maybe a couple of months. I was so nervous. I was going to screw it up. I was really nervous. Hence the importance of getting someone to teach you how to do that. And I will tell you, the 15th and the 30th of every month, I do a test transaction on my equipment, $100, whatever it is. I'm sending it to myself from me to me. And the muscle memory is there. It took a while. And I just had a session with the Bitcoin way recently. And the gentleman helping me goes, "You've been practicing." I said, "You're damn right I've been practicing. Because if something weird happens and you need to move some Bitcoin, you do not need to be sweating, nervous, and fearful. I can guarantee you that. Because there is no customer service number, baby. You mess this thing up." And that's the beauty of Bitcoin, is to take on the full responsibility for the preservation of your wealth. This is a whole new stratosphere for people when they understand that. And I believe that a high 90% of the population won't care about that. And it's okay. There will be reputable exchanges, I believe, that weather the storms and provide a good service to people. And that's fine. And then there will be those purists or those old school cats like, "Grandpa, tell us about cold storage." They're thinking, "Ooh, it's in a deep vault in the earth in the back of your yard somewhere, and you are half crazy." And then you explain it to them, and they go, "Wow." And maybe at that point, it's on a completely different medium, but still cold storage. Who knows?
Yeah, that's funny. I was just thinking to myself about this idea or this feeling that you get when you move your Bitcoin into cold storage and feel that feeling for the first time.
Oh, man.
It's almost like there's no word in the dictionary to really capture how that feels and how powerful that is?
And I can tell you that I understand what you're talking about, because the fear was just like nervousness, but then that fades with practice transactions.
Yeah.
And it's like going to the gym, man. You build a little bit of muscle every single time, and you go, you know what? The illusion, the mist, it's so mystical. Yeah, the mist is like a fog. The fog begins to fade, and I think you said this on one of your episodes. Don't get angry at the illusion, see through the illusion. That's incredibly powerful. And if somebody can get a hold of that and have conviction, not only for the inner transformation that happens, but the physical part of the Bitcoin, moving it and the buttons and all that, you marry those two together, that's a good thing. But in the end, I have a sneaking suspicion, my friend, that even the most hard-handed, diamond-handed people with Bitcoin, I'm talking non-institutional, I'm talking the general public, they're going to be absolutely backed up into a corner and truly tested on their conviction. It's not going to be pretty. I'm not saying it's going to be violent, but I think people are going to be really tested. And some could say, how much faith do you have? There's a million ways to say this. But in the end, I know without a shadow of a doubt how banking works. I know how evil and corrupt it is, and I know it's been happening for centuries. It doesn't mean I'm going to wake up to a utopia tomorrow and everyone's going to use Bitcoin. It doesn't mean that. But I do know this. How serious are you about protecting the fruit of your labor? That's the only question I need to ask myself. What is your life worth? Because ultimately, this Bitcoin represents one thing and one thing only: the energy that comes from inside of us that you cannot see. That's what the blockchain is. It's physics. It's mathematics. We are talking about the architecture and the fabric of the universe. Fiat is absolutely nothing in the face of that. It is nothing. It's garbage, literally garbage, in the same breath if we're talking about a medium of exchange. Dollars are useful, yes. And they'll be as useful as their people choose them to be useful. Will I ever see a total Bitcoin society? I used to want to. I used to hope to. And if I do, that's fine. But if I don't, that's fine too.
I'm absolutely loving this conversation. And I've just been thinking about this concept too recently, about how holding Bitcoin in self-custody is all about having trust in yourself over trust in institutions. We've lived our whole lives thinking that we can trust institutions more than ourselves. And that's why people trust the banking institutions. And very few people actually trust themselves more than institutions. But you're absolutely right. We're going to need to trust ourselves more than institutions, because we're seeing these institutions start to crumble basically in slow motion right in front of our eyes. And so it's only a matter of time before they fully crumble. And so why you can still maintain the illusion that you can trust these institutions for now, but it's just going to get less and less over time that you're going to be able to trust these institutions. And just this concept of trusting yourself is so powerful and so foreign. And I love how you touched on that idea, just to how powerful we are as individuals.
Think about it. They're collapsing, and it's going to be inconvenient. It's going to be messy. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be whatever it is. But we know that the fact that they're crumbling means the trust is eroding. That is their true currency. It is not the dollars. It is not the digital movement of money. It is not the SWIFT system, which is how banks move money all over the world, right? The erosion of their only currency, which is trust. And trust can be gained by subterfuge. It can be gained the natural way by actually providing something real to another human being with an equal exchange of energy. I have thought about this, and I know you have thought about this very deeply. The reason why the trust is eroding is because more and more people are realizing something is wrong, something is deeply wrong, it's global, and this is what it boils down to. Nature is a beautiful blueprint that the architect gave us to look at, and this is what's happening. The exchange of energy is uneven. and the ledger has not yet been rectified. And that rectifying is coming like a freight train. And as Lynn Alden said, you cannot stop this freight train. That's what the freight train is. It's truth. And when, the metaphor of some believe that at the end of our physical lives, we stand before the Creator and there is a reckoning, there is an accounting of our lives. That's a beautiful metaphor. Whether that actually happens or not, no one really knows. But in this world, we can experience that. Someone taking a full audit of every single thing inside of my heart. That has to be me, right? That's what the inner work is. Like looking at the darkness, looking in the corners and going, okay, and how do I deal with that? How do I see that? Is there shame? Is there guilt? Is there loathing? Is there joy? Is there positive expectation? Nothing hides from the sun. Why do you think the logo is orange? They could have made it any color in the damn world. They made it orange. Whoever they is, whenever that first logo was created, maybe they were thinking that. I don't really know. But we can look at that and go, that's pretty cool that it turned out to be orange. Now the sun is yellow, but can also be orange too. But in the end, we can't hide from the truth. And I believe lately, in the last 20 years, well, you create your own truth. I disagree with that. I can create my own perception and I can shape things and arrange my house in the way that I see fit and maybe my life and my friendships. But in the end, there's something underneath all of this. And it's the truth of nature. And what we're doing is we are defying nature as a species at such a level that the seams are starting to crack and the rivets are popping out of it. And you can call it the Great Reset, the Great Reckoning, the whatever it is. And thank God the architect built it this way. It's Greg, you can get away with foolishness when you're young, but it's going to accumulate. And if you don't correct your behavior, your body's going to break down. And so is your spirit. It'll always be there, but you will have less and less of a connection and an awareness of the thing that is inside of you that you truly are. That's really what this is about. And I can't even say how amazing that is and how beautiful that is. There's a lot of ugliness that has shown itself in the world, and I'm sure every generation has felt this way, as they should. But there are times in history when we look at the peaks and the troughs, and we are at a peak of madness right now and untruth. And the tide is starting to turn. And if we can just be me and you don't even need to go out and ride the wave. If we could just stand on the shore and that's as far as we get and watch some people surfing and go, we helped this surfing event happen. I'm good with that, bro. I'm good with that.
Yeah. Wow. You've got so many profound insights and I resonate deeply with pretty much everything that you're saying. And I really want to know more about how Bitcoin has triggered this shift in consciousness for you and the spiritual journey, because I can hear it in what you're saying. It sounds like it's deeply transformed you. And I've experienced that just over the last 5 years. And I am so grateful that I have Bitcoin to help me in this journey of transformation. That's what I appreciate more so than the money aspect. It's how it's transforming my consciousness and my personal transformation. And I can see a path forward with Bitcoin where it never ends, where you're just this continual unfolding and getting deeper to your true layers. And I'm very curious to hear how it's been for you since you've been in it for longer. Has it been this ongoing journey for you? And have you had these subtle shifts in consciousness that have added up over the years?
Before I answer that question, I'll give you an equivalent experience. Very briefly, I won't go into it. And I could feel it in my guts, in my soul when it happened. A few days after 9/11, I woke up in my bed going to my usual banker day. And I already knew it, but for whatever reason, the energy just built up and it hit me. I was actually at work when the Twin Towers were burning. My friend happened to have in her Bronco an old black and white TV for camping or something, and she went and grabbed it and plugged it in, and we were literally watching the towers burn. A couple of days later, I had a little bit of time to decompress, and I was laying there in bed. Is it in the morning? I want to say in the morning. I swung my legs around, I put my feet on the floor, and I knew in my bones, there is nothing that these people will not do to stay in power. There is nothing they will not do. And that was not really a transformation, but more of a confirmation of what it is that I felt was true about what it is, what had happened from the 30,000 foot view, not the macro and who and all that, but I knew what had happened. And it wasn't what it was presented to be. And none of that really matters because banking's not what's presented to be. It's my job to see through the camouflage to the truth. So to answer your question, the transformation, it hasn't been like lightning bolt moments for me for Bitcoin. It's just been a nice, slow fits and starts, steady accumulation. I have some moments where something is like a big aha for me. And I used to go, man, I need to write that down. No, Greg, don't write it down. Once you have the aha, it's inside of you. You'll access it whenever it is that you need it. But I have days where I'm a little cynical. And think about it. If you've been a slave and you've been beaten and pounded your whole life, it's hard to come out of that consciousness and to change that vibration. It really is. Banking's been around in its, I shouldn't say its current form, but generally speaking, we're talking about lending at interest, essentially, right? And the bottom line is you borrow a unit, you pay back that unit, and you pay back 60 to 70% more than that unit in the mortgage business, right? And we now know that 60 to 70% doesn't even exist. So we're literally, when we're in debt, we're chasing, I knew all this before Bitcoin came around for me. We know that we're chasing something that doesn't even exist. That's a never-ending hamster wheel. And the people at the top of the rungs of power, whoever they are, they know that. And they've got a well-oiled machine. So I think for me, the transformation has been slow and steady for my conviction to Bitcoin. My wife hates hearing about it. She's, oh my God. I try not to, I don't get like crazy, but sometimes I'll get a little, and she's, I don't even want to hear it. She's, I'm 74. I'm like, okay, I get it, but I can't not talk about it at some level. So for me, it's number one, thank God I was born into this world in the time frame that I was born into it. Well, I don't have anything to compare it to, but I could have been born at a different time. I could have been born pre-1913 before the Federal Reserve even existed as an institution, right? That's a whole different conversation, obviously. But I do know that even without Bitcoin, I have to be willing to look inside of myself, warts and all, and not have hate in my heart. And it's hard for me to look at these people who have done the evil that they've done. And I've done a little bit of evil too. I mean, I've never committed a felony or killed anybody, but done things. We've all done things. And there's levels of frequency. There's levels of depth. There's levels of heinousness. There's levels of evil. There are levels of evil. And there are some people, for whatever reason, I can't speak for them. They literally have no conscience. And my uncle described it this way. He said, I got no problem if people do some dastardly things. But he said, when they're willing to just murder people wholesale, willy-nilly, that would be war, obviously. Small wars, medium wars, and large wars. That's when he has a problem. So in the end, I can remember, here's a turning point to answer your question. Not to get political, this is just an example. 2016 rolled around, and I didn't really care about the election. It's just all a bunch of noise. But when I heard Hillary Clinton was running, I'd like to pay attention. This is going to get interesting because she's got a history, right? That's an interesting conversation. And one day, I didn't turn a corner, but I just shifted a little bit. And I said, you know what? I did a podcast on it. Thank you, Hillary Clinton. And I meant that at a deep spiritual level. Simply this. Thank you for being a mirror for me. Because when I look at what you've done in your life and I get angry at you, and I would literally not have a problem seemingly killing you for what you've done and punishing you, I'm actually talking to myself because I feel the need to be murdered at some deep level, or I feel the need to be severely punished at some deep level. This is really what evil, it's the purpose that evil serves in the world, right? Jack Mallers said it recently. He said, the fear of death is what makes us appreciate life. We live in a world of polarity. And the problem is, one of the problems is, there's a lot of people in the world that are cunning enough to convince a bunch of people, I can sell you the solution to that, where you can be comfortable all the time and you don't need to suffer ever. I think that's what transhumanism is really all about. That's a whole different conversation. Suffering, Jordan Peterson said, this was beautiful. He said, suffering is a condition of life. Why would God allow this to happen? One might say. That's a whole different conversation. It happens. It's how we deal with it that shapes not who we are and what we are, but it shapes our experience of it. There is so much that is hiding inside of the thing called Bitcoin. It's almost like if you were to think of nuclear fusion, generally speaking, and the energy that is stored in an atomic bomb, and I don't mean this in a bad way, it's packed in there really tight. And once that chain reaction starts, you detonate one or two of those things, you literally shift the tilt of the earth, even if by 1/1000th of an inch. That has been proven. That's how powerful Bitcoin is. But if I don't know I'm in the right place at the right time, and I don't know what it is that I hold in my hand, the opportunity will be lost. And back to nature. This is another awareness thing that I think about a lot. There's an old saying, wolves don't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. Mm-hmm. And all that means is this. An apex predator is what an apex predator does. A wolf is what a wolf does, and its prey is what its prey does. And the architect built it that way. And I have to take that and overlay it onto people that are evil in the banking system or in government. They are what they are, and they do what they do. And I cannot change that. I simply have to find some way to have peace in my heart to exist while that also exists. And every human that's ever been incarnated onto this planet has had to do the same damn thing, even if it's with just another tribe that they can't stand that's maybe 2 or 3 miles down the road, and they're fighting over food and territory and whatever it is that they fight over. This is the saga of the human condition, and it's been unfolding, I believe, generally in the same way, slightly different because of technology and the things that we can build and create and put together. But it's the same saga. That's why we love a good story. That's why we love the hero's journey, because it goes deep inside of our gut and our heart and our bones and our DNA, and it's like a guitar string, man. It just plucks it. It's like a harp, and we feel that vibration, and we go, yes, it is worth living. Yes, this experience is beautiful and deep and loving, but it's also painful and miserable at the same time. And thank God, those just come in fits and starts, peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
I can't remember what the question was, but I just know you dropped so many pearls of wisdom.
Aha moments.
Yeah,
aha moments, I think.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. What a hidden gem you are for coming on and sharing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I love this concept of using Bitcoin as a catalyst for deep inner work and deep spiritual growth, and how you talk about how it's so important to analyze your inner beliefs, your inner emotions, and accept things for the reality of how they are as opposed to how you wish them to be, and seeing the evil out there as just a mirror for the evil that we're capable of internally. I think that's a huge component of this, is realizing that there is evil out there, but that evil is the same evil that we have the capacity for. And so it's about recognizing our own capacity for evil, recognizing just the humanity of ourselves, everyone, and how Bitcoin accounts for the evil within us and doesn't allow it to get amplified. Like the fiat system is just a perfect breeding ground for that evil to amplify, whereas Bitcoin kind of keeps evil and greed in check. And it's such a beautiful design.
I think about, just say $1, whatever we want to call it, we can call it. I have something that I want to buy from you. We're both happy. We have an exchange. I give you the $1, you give me the thing. That $1, it's so beautiful. The metaphors are endless. It's turtles all the way down, I think they say in the Eastern tradition. This is so beautiful. That $1 only really means one thing. It means I'm proving to you that either I did the work, or someone else did the work and gave it to me, or someone else did the work and I frickin' stole it from them. But either way, we don't really need to know that about each other. It's $1. This isn't going to break me. It's not going to break you, but that is proof of work. And I hand you the money and you accept it, and you hand me the thing and I accept it. But I'm proving to you I did the work. Here's the energy, because that's really what it is. Bitcoin, you can't hide. You could steal somebody's Bitcoin, but in the end, the proof of work concept is absolutely fantastic. And it goes back to Did the molecules move or did the molecules not move? Was the nucleus there or was the nucleus not there? Were the physics there operating or were they not operating? And if you can't prove that to me, you're not even in the game, brother. Go back to the porch because you need to just go hang out with the little dogs. Seriously. And that's the beauty of nature. Doggone it, I can't believe that lion ate that gazelle. You bad lion, you evil. No, he's hungry. That's what lions do. And humans can be that way too. They can.
So what fascinates me about your story is how you saw all of this stuff before Bitcoin was even around. So if you saw this stuff, where did you store your money or your value before Bitcoin was an option?
Just a regular bank. I had a little bit of silver, nothing major, a little bit of gold. I hadn't really crossed that Rubicon of a little bit of prepping, but not like living in the hills type of a thing. But '08, I thought was going to be like it is now in terms of the seams falling apart. '06, my wife and I started the whole get out of debt as quickly as possible thing in a healthy way, all overtime, all bonus. And the mortgage business was on fire pre '08. So we poured all of our overtime, all of our bonus into just getting out of debt as quickly as we could. I got out of that business the first time, the first couple of months of '08 before it really just melted down completely. But yeah, just a regular savings account. And now I keep a little bit of fiat to pay bills and stuff. And just a certain little amount seriously, it's been said that most people, the most of an emergency they'll ever really have normally is about $10,000 less on average. If I could be anywhere near that in a little bit of cash, then I'm fine. But I do have some cash, but it's on an exchange, river.com. I'll promote them all day long. I trust them. I like them. I would call that my bank account. They pay a yield in either Bitcoin or cash. I choose Bitcoin. It's not a ton. But it's backed by a bank. It has to be. They have to see banking. This stuff's highly regulated, all of it. They're not playing games. Institutions are in and they're doing all of it. But in the end, it's like playing both games at the same time. Because I know that if I walked away from Bitcoin today, fiat is not going to stop doing what fiat is doing. So it's take a chance on this technology, this opportunity. You could do that, or you could stick with what's not working, what's on fire, and what's dying. What are you going to do? I don't know if I trailed off of your question or not.
Yeah, no, that was great. And you've mentioned the 2008 crisis a couple of times. And I think a lot of Bitcoiners were too young to really remember what that felt like. Can you talk about what you were feeling in the world at the time and how it unfolded and how that kind of led beautifully to the birth of Bitcoin?
Yeah, when '08 happened, I already understood enough about how the Fed operated to know that it was an inevitability. '08 was an inevitability. And by the way, since '08, they've done nothing but put on hyperdrive what they did leading up to '08. Nothing's changed since then. But at the time, I wasn't freaked out. It happened. I knew enough about why it happened. And then to see the heads of largest banks in the country go in front of Congress, and it was all a show, and go, we need this money, and if we don't get it, it's going to melt the system down. Now, that was true. I don't know what kind of an earthquake that would have looked like because we didn't have as much money in the system. The M2 money supply, if we want to call it that, wasn't as big as it is now. But they said, if we don't get the money, it's all going to come apart. But what they didn't say is we're the cause of it falling apart, but now we need this money. That's not going to happen this time, by the way. They're not going to go to Congress and beg for money. They're just going to print it and just keep on moving. But '08 happened. And truth be told, my wife and I had been doing the debt elimination thing for about 2 years at that point. And fortunately, neither of us got laid off from our bank. We worked for pretty big banks, decent size, names you'd recognize if I said them. So our lifestyle didn't change one bit when '08 happened. But when '08 happened, it's okay. Let's do a little bit of preparedness, get a little bit of storable food, a little food security, maybe a little 6-month supply. If things get crazy for a while, at least we can eat, that type of thing. And then here we are, fast forward to now. The same thing's happening. It's larger now because they've put off fixing it. I think the thing that I really want to articulate that's hard sometimes for me, I know it intellectually, I know it inside of my guts, but some days I'm like, ugh, it's so out of control right now. There's not going to be a soft landing. There's going to be some period of time where it's going to be rough. And I don't know what the rough's going to look like, and I don't know how long it's going to be. But you can't soft landing this thing now. They're trying like crazy. Bitcoin, stable coins, they're trying to smooth out that runway before the jet comes in, missing 2 engines, basically. We're on a glide path, basically, at this point. We're running on fumes, really. But in the end, when '08 happened, I wasn't surprised. I was just glad that we were getting out of debt. I wanted us to be as less top heavy as humanly possible. And the bottom line is this: whatever happens between this moment now and whatever Bitcoin does, there's going to be people. This is the hard part. There's going to be people in your life. There's going to be people in your family, in your circle of friends that do not want to listen to what it is that you have to say about Bitcoin. And I want you to think about, I'm not a Christian. I'm not here to promote anything. I want you to think about Noah building that ark. People looked at him and they said, you've been smoking some weed, haven't you? You've been doing a little peyote out there in the woods. And Noah just kept building that ark. And then when it started raining, he had to close those doors. It's going to come to that. And whether that's metaphorically or literally remains to be seen. But in the end, people will hold on to habit and or tradition, even if it kills them. In some instances, this is one of the things about being a human. It takes incredible courage to make the kind of change that you and I are talking about when it comes to money, especially if you're deep in debt. Maybe you've got 2 or 3 kids. Maybe there's sickness in your family. Can you imagine the layers of stress that someone could be under? And then you mention this thing and they're like, I'm barely keeping food on the table. What are you talking about? 100 grand of Bitcoin. So I feel blessed. But here's the thing. All that prep work that my wife and I did from '06 forward up until the moment I learned about Bitcoin, that's called proof of work. And I never really thought about that until just now in this moment. We were doing that work. It was for basically the same reason. And then this thing showed up called Bitcoin. And I'm like, let's add this. Let's add this arrow to our quiver. One more tool and we'll see where it goes. And I didn't think we'd get the adoption that we got in the last year. I thought I'd be 80 years old before those conversations started being had in Congress. But I'm like, I'm going to hang on to this thing if it kills me. What do I got to lose?
Yeah, this concept of how essential it is to do your own proof of work is something that I've been thinking about a lot, because I want to help my loved ones and my friends and family. And I want to just give them this conviction that I have, give them this knowing that I have about Bitcoin and what's coming. And it creates a little bit of a conflict in my mind, because I want to help so much, but it's a paradox because you can't do the proof of work for somebody else. And you wouldn't want to, because you wouldn't want to steal that moment from them, because it's so beautiful building your own proof of work. And
I think the reason why what you said is so poignant is because there's going to come a time, or maybe several times, when if each individual person does not have the conviction of which we speak, you cannot save them from that non-conviction. You cannot. You cannot. Just if you had a child that were living in just absolute madness and doing really dangerous things, and I put my parents through that crap when I was a younger man. And I remember my mom telling me, she said, Greg, when you were out there living in the darkness, and you better believe I was living in the darkness, she said, I got done praying to God. And I told Satan, you are not taking my son. That's what I'm talking about. It's the same thing. And it doesn't mean not adopting Bitcoin is evil. It doesn't mean that. It just means no one can save Greg from Greg but Greg. No one. This is so beautiful. You will be forced to stand in front of the mirror and look at yourself, Greg. You will be forced. You can do it on your own time and in your own leisure, which I feel I've done some of that in my life. Or you can be forced to do that. I don't want to be at that 11th hour and be forced to look in that mirror, because it's not going to happen instantly. Maybe for some, I don't know. I can only speak for myself.
That was so beautifully said. Thank you so much again for all this wisdom that you're dropping here on the podcast.
I appreciate it.
I'm curious, with all of the cycles that you've been through, have you ever had a moment where you came close to selling?
No. Now, when I bought the gold coin, that was like, God, do I really? Not because I knew where it was going to go in price. I had no idea, but I'm like, are you betraying your initial commitment? And I'm like, it is a gold coin. It is an asset. It's useful. I could pay my property taxes with it. Okay, no problem there. And then when I paid for the services with the Bitcoin way, at first it felt weird sending that Bitcoin. It's like, man, I don't want to let go of it, because I don't have that hoarding energy. It's a continuous flow. But after paying for a couple of sessions for security, sending that, it's like, you just replace it. Next payday, just replace it. It's not the end of the world. Don't worry about the price that you bought it at. I completely lost my train of thought. I don't even remember what the question was. I apologize. I was just out there in left field and just the tether it broke. It just broke.
Yeah, no, that was good insight. I was asking about if you've ever had
been tempted to sell.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. If you were to put a gun to my head, and I know this sounds really cheesy, unfortunately it has happened to people. Metaphorically, if you put a gun to my head and said, sell your Bitcoin, if it were someone's life at stake, would have to be my immediate family. Maybe. Not going to say no. But for any tangible thing, a house, a car, a yacht, a whatever, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I've got a sweater. You probably get a kick out of this. Land's End is the brand. It's wool. It goes with anything. It had a little hole that had just worn in it once. I had it fixed, and I still have it in there. And I was going to wear it, but it's a little bit warm in here because it's 20 outside. That sweater came to me through the mail when I was in the Navy fighting in the Gulf War, and I still wear that sweater today. So for me, things serve a utility value, right? Now, I have an affinity for microphones because I was in radio in the late 90s for a couple of years. That's like my little hobby thing. I got a few more microphones than I should have. Not 100, not 50, but you buy something because you enjoy it and it brings you joy. But other than that, this house, there is zero attachment to this house that I live in. Now, it's a little different maybe for my wife, a little bit different. But I think of clothing, cars, houses, or anything like a garden rake. I go to the hardware store, I buy it. It serves a utility value. And when I'm done, I just put it in the shed for the next time I need to use it. I don't go show it to all my friends and put pictures of it on YouTube and Instagram and brag to people, look at this rake that I bought. It serves its purpose. You put it back in the box. So I can't think of anything today, doesn't mean it wouldn't ever be a time when I would, that would cause me to go, would you be willing to part with your stack? Today, the answer is no. Today's the answer, hell effing no. I won't part with my stack because I know we have to have grain in the silo to weather the storm that's coming. And it's coming. And I hope it's brief if it gets ugly or a little bumpy. But if we don't have that grain in the silo and that fuel in the tank, my wife is 74. She could live to be 100 for crying out loud. We need that fuel. We need that dry powder on top of whatever else I have rat holed away for a rainy day or whatever. So if I just look at it from that standpoint, it's just wise. You need to hang on to this dry powder because there's going to come a day when it's not just going to be this luxury stack laying over there for you to look at and go, I wish this would go up in value. And you better believe I want it to go up in number. But in the end, let's say it went up 5x tomorrow. You and I woke up tomorrow and Bitcoin was at 500,000. Sure, I'd be happy. But in 20 years, what's that going to buy? It took me at 20 plus years in banking when I really thought I was smart. It's Greg, whatever the number it is in fiat is really irrelevant. What will that buy in the marketplace? What is milk going to cost? What is gas going to cost? That's really what's going to determine what I can do with that Bitcoin. And at this point, the money printer is controlling that. But you know what? I hate to say this. It's a part of me admitting my human selfishness. I don't want them to keep printing because the more they print, the more pain there's going to be. But if its number go up for me, that's just part of what I signed up for. And I can't control that, but I'll take it all day long. Yeah. You want to throw some extra zeros on the end of my stack, Mr. Uncle Sam? You just go right ahead. I'm not going to stop you.
Yeah, what you're touching on is something that I resonate deeply too, is about snapping out of that consumer mindset, because we're so conditioned to just want to buy things with our money. But Bitcoin kind of flips that around and shows you just how ludicrous it is to just spend all your energy working to get paper to then buy things. You just realize how pointless that is. And it's really flipped this whole concept of ownership. What really is ownership? And we typically think of it as owning physical things, but Bitcoin shows that ownership is more of an idea. It's a concept. It's abstract. It has nothing to do with physical objects.
Yeah, I have a friend. We occasionally have these conversations. We met in the late 80s in California. He now lives in Arizona. We touch base here and there. He said, Greg, I'm happy that you're going to pay your house off before I paid my house off. He said, but I just want you to remember this one thing. And he knew that I knew this, but he needed to say it out loud for whatever reason. He said, you only own what you can physically protect. Isn't that true? But going back to what you just said, we know that it's not about the physical things that we own, because one of the great books in the world tells us it all turns to dust, and it does. And every great tradition speaks of these things because we're all having the same human experience. How cool is that? Like, why would I want to fight in a war against somebody who believes in Buddha or who believes in Krishna? It's like we're all looking at the same stars, the same moon, the same sun, the same nature, but we do that. We get caught up in that. And the illusion is strong. It's very strong. And for whatever reason, before we incarnated here, that's why the Spanish word for meat is carne, incarnate, why we came into the meat, right? Because we wanted to experience this, I think, and we wanted to learn this friction, like, and maybe appreciate, maybe we were bored in the void. I don't know. But I can tell you this, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about things that are in the vein of what we're talking about right now. I don't give a damn what interest rates are. I don't really care. I didn't care when I was a banker. Now, my first year, I was a loan officer working on commission. I cared what interest rates were, because if they were high, business was down, and if they were low, business was up. But after that, I had to let go of that. They're going to make money be what money is, but I do know this. Ultimately, anyone that creates money and creates this illusion and does it with ill intent and evil intent, and they do, they're really only doing one thing. They are stealing, attempting to steal time. If I rob you at gunpoint and I take your wallet and you've got $5,000 cash on you, I'm too lazy to go do the work that it takes to get that in the market that we both live in, whatever the market yields for that five, whatever labor is required. I'm stealing your time. And what we're doing is we're defying nature. That's what banking is doing. It is defying the laws of nature. And ultimately, what this is, what we could say it is, metaphorically, it is rebellion against the architect of the universe. I believe this is what technology does to us. It can. It works for both for good and for evil, absolutely, as everything can. But the people that really ramp it up in a negative way, they want to defy the architect of the universe. They want to defy the laws of nature. And every time you do that, it may take 1,000 years or 3,000 years. You are going to pay the consequence. And we're living in that consequence right now.
Wow, that's so deep.
Yeah.
I know we're over time. Do you have time to keep going a little bit, or do you want me to wrap it up?
As long as you want to go, okay. We're good, man.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this conversation. And one thing I wanted to ask you is, along your journey, have you connected with other Bitcoiners that have been in it as long as you? And has that led to these deep connections with people? And or have you gone to local meetups and gotten involved in your local Bitcoin community?
We've got a pretty cool place not too far from here, maybe half an hour south. Bitcoin Ben, he's got it's just a space down there. You can get plugged in at a bunch of different levels and all kinds of stuff. And I've thought about it. And I signed up for a little app where you can actually locate people, like how many people are in this town that are Bitcoiners that are signed up. And then I thought to myself, we're humans. We want to be around other people. We're tribal in nature at some level. Then I thought to myself, I've heard some wise people say, eventually, humans have the ability to get to a point where they don't completely isolate themselves from other human beings. That's tough to do. It's possible. I'm not that guy. But I feel like looking for other people in the space to hang out with, this is not a bad thing. I'm not a hermit or anything. It's like me having the need to go to church all the time. It's like I've heard a deeply spiritual man, like a Swami level type of a guy say, you get to a certain level, it doesn't mean enlightenment. It just means you don't feel the need to commune with other people at church on Sunday or whatever it is. And that's different for everybody. And I'm not saying I'm here or there or the other, but I bounce back and forth. Reaching out to you is the part of me that wants to connect with other people. That's in our nature. It's in our gut. It's in our bones. It's in our DNA. And that's a beautiful thing. But generally, I don't have any other Bitcoiners that I hang out with. I have one sibling. I wouldn't say I orange pilled him. I maybe mentioned Bitcoin twice, maybe over the years. And I went down and visited because I got some family that lives south of here. And me and my two brothers are sitting on the couch and they're like, Greg, that Bitcoin thing, man, you were right. It must have spiked in price or something. And I shared a little bit with them, but I've learned to temper my excitement. We don't really want to scare anybody away, but I'm like, you know what? Everybody, you've heard it. We all get Bitcoin at the price that we deserve. Okay, that's fine. That happens to be what it happens to be when we make the decision. I can't bring anybody across the end zone, man. It's like you got to take the snap and you got to get a couple of your teeth busted out on the way to the end zone, man. And if that's not what you're into, it's okay. It's okay. So for me, I have days where I'm like, man, I really want to help some people. And then I think about, if I have the need to help other people, then that means I feel that I need some sort of help. And I don't mean get on a black leather couch and figure out why I broke the lamp when I was 6 and none of that. This is just a beautiful, amazing, unfolding thing that happens to us regardless of Bitcoin. We could call Bitcoin a really cool catalyst. But if we don't have a level of awareness to do that inner work, we just get the thing. We just get the pile, and we get the what can the pile buy? And that's not really what I'm in it for. I'll take that because those things can help me do things in my life and help family members and close friends, maybe, if things get bad or even if things don't get bad. But even then, there's a part of me that says, you put too much money in somebody's lap and they don't have a level of consciousness to handle that energy, it's for naught, or it can be for naught. So I don't know. Dude, I remember when the internet was in its infancy. I'm not saying you're young and I'm old. It wasn't even a word. I had heard the word internet before. I didn't know anyone that had a home computer. But when I got into radio in the late 90s, I got extremely blessed. And by the way, that was a walking off the street with zero experience job too that I wanted more than anything in the world. What suits you the best, Greg? You're a pretty good communicator of ideas. What works for you? And then radio just made sense for me. I walked in the door. They were going from CD decks for their music programming, all computer driven, for their content on the air, to digital hard drive storage of audio, which was cutting edge at the time. And they were running Windows 95 at all of their stations. They owned, I think, 3 or 4. I got to see all of that being built out. And the station manager at the time taught me how to work Windows. And I took typing in high school, praise God. And that was it. If I hadn't gotten that interested in the internet at that time in my life, I honestly don't think I'd be where I am right now in terms of, I don't know. I really don't know. But thank God for learning to type, and thank God for learning computers in 1998. The dot-com bubble hadn't even happened yet at that point. Craziness, man.
Yeah, such an incredible perspective that you're offering, and just the power of embracing change. I think that's a key theme here, is how you saw things early because your mind was open to change and not being stuck on this is how things are. You were able to see how things were evolving with the internet and then Bitcoin, and you've seen this transformation from analog to digital, and you've seen how powerful that is. And now we're basically just seeing the transformation of money from analog to digital. So why would it be any different than these other transformations that we've already seen? It at least is going to match in terms of the scale. You're talking about audio, like when it went digital, the scale matched it, and then probably times 10 at least. So why would it be any different with money? So if we're talking about the digital transformation, the analog to digital transformation of money, if we compare that to gold, of course we're going to at least match gold, at least. And in these transformations, it always 10x's. So then we've got another 10x to get to gold, and then we've got another 10x just as part of the analog to digital transformation. So it's almost like a 100x no-brainer at this point.
Yeah, and I love to hear people that are highly technical that understand the power law and like really down to the physics level. It's absolutely fascinating. And I don't need to go get a degree in that and fully understand it, as I don't need to understand the physics of what causes a combustion engine to work. Just get in the damn thing and drive it. That's good enough for me. In a way, I'm okay with that. But I do know first principles, right? I heard Adam Livingston, who's got a great Bitcoin channel, by the way. He's fire hose delivery, man. I love that guy. He's, it's just amazing. He said, He was talking about money and markets and banks. He said complexity is camouflage for exploitation. That's a whole lot there. So that reminds me of the importance of first principle. Like when I heard the word decentralized, I knew a little bit about a first principle, not as much as I know today, but enough to go, this is worth paying attention to. But no matter what it goes to, and I'll take a 10x all day long. I'll take a 100x all day long. I believe gold will coexist with Bitcoin for a very long time, just because it's literally in our DNA, literally. The memory of it, just the memory of gold, it's very powerful. And where does that gold come from? It comes from the bowels of the earth. This is so primal, it's not even funny. How do you smelt gold? You must use flame. Look at the ball of the Bitcoin logo. It's orange. The sun burns. We would all die without the sun. There are so many layers to this. It is absolutely endless.
I love what you talked about, gold coming from the bowel of the earth. It's almost like Bitcoin is coming from the bowel of this informational realm. So gold might go deep into the physical layers, but what we realize now with quantum physics is that the physical layers are just 0.001% of everything that exists. The other 99.999% is frequency, energy, and vibration. So Bitcoin is basically getting into the bowels of those frequencies, energies, and vibrations. So
I think the physical world, everything that we see, everything that we don't really create anything. We amalgamate things. We take the pieces of the puzzle and we bring them together on the table, and then we put the puzzle together, because the architect put everything here before we showed up. To think that everything that will ever be created by humans already exists on this planet, bar a meteor coming and we find an element that we didn't know about. I get it. Okay, fine. It's all of the ingredients for the soup that we'll ever make ever in human history are on this planet. Whether we go to Mars and populate, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. But here's what I think about the 3D world. It's amazing and it's beautiful, and we suffer, yes. It's like smelling the smell of an amazing meal that's being cooked. That's what the 3D world is. But we don't ever actually get to take a bite out of the meat itself, the metaphorical meat. Like we're getting, to me, this is the vapor. This is the aroma of reality, or one piece of the aroma of reality. And our job is like constantly go, I got to know where the thing is. We're constantly, that's what drives us. And I think once a person with a certain level of awareness, whatever that awareness is, gets a hold of Bitcoin, it's the same thing. Like you just said, it's, man, I got to get down in that. I got to drill down, man. We really need to know what makes this machine run. And some people stay up it in their head. And I stayed there for most of my life. God help us. I was stuck in my mind. I couldn't get out of my brain. And it's like, Greg, you just need to get a little bit down, a little bit. And then it's okay. Feel something like emotion. Okay, fine. That's good. But I can't live in my intellect. I can't, because we're not a one-dimensional being or experience. There's just layer after layer. And it's, for whatever reason, whether this is a school that we're here to graduate from, to go to the next vibration or whatever, we'll never really know. But imagine if this is nothing but kindergarten, man. We're just learning the ABCs, man, the 1, 2, 3s, and the blue and the yellow and the green, and that's a cat and that's a dog. And there's all these other layers of experience that are available to us as whatever it is that we are that we can't see. The fact that we can even think about what we think about and be the observer of who we are and be the observer of our thoughts, to me, that's like the doorway to the secret of, I don't understand how someone can be an atheist. I get it. I get that. But even some of the greats like Einstein, allegedly at the end of their lives, concede and go, no, man, or maybe like a hardcore physicist who's an atheist, and I'm not shunning that. They go, after all these years, I have to finally concede and say there is something that we cannot explain. Because if you look at something in a microscope and you just keep magnifying it more and more, all you're going to see is empty space. At some point, you're not going to be able to build a more powerful microscope. Why? Because there's nothing there. The concept that I come from nothing, the void, it blows my mind. like cold, still darkness. Cold means no movement. When something's frozen, it stops vibrating. It's dead. When a body dies, it doesn't move anymore. To think that the essence of us could possibly come from cold, black, dark space, you can't even wrap your head around that shit, but we try, and it's fun, and it's frustrating, just like money is. It's fun, and it's frustrating, and it can get ugly, but it can also get beautiful all at the same time. It's amazing.
Man, your thoughts are just so high level. There's so many questions I have and so much appreciation for everything that you're saying. Because one thing I wanted to hone in on, because this is where I'm at in my life right now, is becoming aware of the awareness and developing my consciousness further and snapping out of this unconscious state. Bitcoin was the catalyst to first get me on this journey of realizing just how unconscious I was. But now I'm realizing just how layered this is and how it's a never-ending process of being aware of the awareness and being the witness of your thoughts and you're not your thoughts. It's such a deep concept, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this journey right now. And it sounds like you've been through this and you've worked this out in your mind. And you said that you lived your whole life in your mind. And I think that's how most people live. We're trapped in our mind. So what was the epiphany that you had to get out of your mind? And is that a daily practice that you have to remind yourself to get out of your mind? Or how do you think about that?
Yeah, like most things in my life, it's like a slow, just a progress. And there's not really, oh, I achieved the thing. It's just layers. I just have to reflect back and say, okay, generally in your memory, how are you operating, generally speaking? Like Windows 95 versus whatever the metaphor is. And I think of I have a handful of friends that I've had since the 80s that I still stay in touch with. And I think, I know I was driving those people crazy because I talked 200 miles an hour. And when I was a kid, whatever I thought came out of my mouth. It was just like a stream. The fact that my parents didn't smother me with a pillow when I was like 2, it just, and I mean that with love in my heart because they were great parents, but it's just the times when I was living in my head were reflecting back. Why were you so frustrated, Greg? And we won't even get into pouring alcohol on it for a long time back in those days, as some people do. Think of your nose. It's right there. If you look down and you close one of your eyes, you can see one side of it. Or even if you just look down cross-eyed, you can see it. But generally during the day, you don't see your nose and you don't think about it. So it's the metaphor, the forest and the trees. And full circle, everything that you need, Greg, you already have. You just don't know it yet. And I don't need to understand the totality of all of that, i.e., what if you and I right now could flip a switch and the totality of what the architect of the universe would suddenly flow through us like electricity through the filament of a light bulb? I would probably explode because I don't have a big enough filament for that. So it's just little bits at a time, little bits at a time, little bits at a time, little bits at a time. That's really all it ever can be. And I just look back and go, I know when I was unhappy. I know when I was living in madness and in darkness, and it was in and out. And I heard, Murti is a holy man. He has a woman there that is, I would say, in that same realm of him in terms of his study and his dedication to what it is that we're talking about at a deep spiritual level. And she gave this teaching one time. It was on YouTube. It was beautiful. And she talked about like a whirlpool or a vortex. And she talked about people. One example was people that are in addiction. She said, they want to get right up to the edge of the abyss and just peek over it. I think that's part of the human experience. But people in addiction push that envelope more than normal people or people that aren't addicted or don't get into that. And I was like, wow, does that not make sense? Because I had times in my life where if things had gone 1/10 of a degree in the other direction, I would have been dead and innocent people would have been dead because of the stupidity that I was living in. But the thing is, I was living probably 98% in my thinking mind and maybe 2% in the other part, and I was completely out of balance. And that's the whole thing. Like I get excited about something. My wife goes, man, when you grab onto something, man, you go, I have to temper that. Bitcoin could have been one of those things, but thank goodness it wasn't. I just heard about it, bought a little bit, forgot about it, revisited it, thought about it a little, and slowly the temperature in the room changed. Instead of we go from 10 degrees to 600 Fahrenheit all of a sudden, and oh man, we have a serious shock going on here. Thank goodness Bitcoin wasn't that for me. So it's just looking at that and going, metaphorically speaking, I tell people this, never in my life, and I can say this knowing this is true, no one ever took advantage of me ever when I was out doing, just living basically that madness in my life. And my madness was nothing compared to some other people's madness. Madness has different layers, right? The alcohol abuse and all those other things and putting myself in danger. I never, ever had a time when the devil kicked down my door and came in and just took over. I invited him in. I called him and said, be here Friday at 4. The beer's going to be cold. Let's roll. And that's just how I approached it. And I literally never felt like I was ever a victim of anyone convincing me to do anything that I didn't want to do. So all that being said, it's like, what do you want to spend your time doing, Greg? Staring in the abyss and abusing your body with chemicals? Or maybe get out of that. You could still stare in the abyss if you want to, but you don't need to put yourself in danger to do that. Like the abyss of death, literally. We could still stare in the abyss because we can think about it metaphorically. What happens when we leave here? Where did we come from? And all these other things. But it's my friend and I that I told you about that lives in Arizona. We've had these conversations because he went through a short spell of heavy addiction. It almost killed him. And I said, what is it? Some people make it and some people don't. And we don't know the answer to that. It doesn't make us special. For some people, they get into this delusion. I was chosen. Who really cares? You're not doing that anymore. You survived yourself. That's the way I look at it. I survived myself. I'll be honest with you. If I had kept going the way I was going when I quit drinking at 25, I wouldn't have lived to 30, or I wouldn't have not been in prison by the time I was 30. And that was one of the biggest reasons why I quit. And I told myself, should you even talk about this today with this nice man that you're going to meet? If it comes up, it comes up, because it's all about the life experience. And I have a family member that drinks daily who I love dearly. There is zero judgment there because I did that for a season. Maybe not daily, but close enough. And I would love to tell that person, please don't do this. There's like this understood thing. I know, that person knows. If that conversation is going to be had, it's going to come from this person that I love. How did you do this? Or how did you do that? That hasn't happened. And I don't have any. Maybe one day. It is what it is, and we do what it is that we do. But I know that if I hadn't changed the trajectory of my life, I would have been in prison a very long time ago. If my parents had been wealthy, like really wealthy when I was coming up, I probably wouldn't have lived to 25. I would have been probably gone, because if I'd had access to more money, I would have just sped up the consumption and the madness and all that. So anyway, I didn't mean to get off into the darkness there, but
no,
just part of the deal.
Yeah, no, that was pretty deep. And thank you for being so personal and sharing your story.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I really love about Bitcoin too, is I feel like it has the power to catalyze a lot of healings. Like it sounds like you had a healing completely separate from Bitcoin, but I'm just imagining people having similar healings as you had because of Bitcoin. And
I imagine they're out there for sure. Yeah. I love what you said earlier about, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, I have a peace of mind, and I don't mean like a nirvana peace of mind, but it's a peace of mind. I dollar cost average monthly I couldn't tell you, with Swan for a couple of years, nowhere near what it should have been or what it could have been in terms of my capacity, but I didn't have the conviction. And then I found out about River, and then I just switched to them. I just like their platform. It's just easier to use for me. I really like it. So now, instead of dollar cost averaging monthly, then I went to weekly, and now I do it daily. There's a little bit of an increase where you can catch a dip, and that's fine, but it's still the same amount that I'm willing to commit to my DCA. I can wake up tomorrow with the peace of mind knowing that I'll have more Bitcoin tomorrow than I did the day before. It's just in daily fractions of what it was I was committing to it previously. But in the overview, that's the micro, right? That's us looking at the grains of sand that are piling up in the hourglass or in the bank account or whatever. But in the 30,000 foot view, that's really where it's at. It's this thing's going to turn out the way, however it turns out. I don't have any control over destiny, none of that shit. I can steer my ship and set my sail, and I got the rudder going and all that. But in the end, Are we headed to the rocky shoals, or are we headed to a soft beach? Where are we headed? Deep water, shallow water? As a nation, I don't really know. But I do know that being born on this soil in this country, I hit the jackpot, the genetic jackpot when I was born in this country on this soil, literally. And not everyone is born in the place that I was born in, just as a country, as the United States. It doesn't mean, oh, it's the best and it's amazing and nothing will ever beat it. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means I could have been born in abject poverty in Calcutta, literally hand to mouth, from not day to day, wake up until noon, whether you starved to death or not. I wasn't born into that. And there's no reason why I was or wasn't. I just wasn't. But I do know that my father's parents lived on a sharecropping farm, and my dad was born into sharecropping, which is one step away from slavery. And my uncle told me, he said, Greg, you and I are one generation away from the cotton patch, brother. And I'm like, wow. So that gets back to some gratitude. It doesn't mean that I don't occasionally go, man, this sucks, man. We do that. We oscillate a little. But generally speaking, think about it. This is very general, but it's true in perception. I'm 6'2", I'm slender, and I happen to be Caucasian. Generally speaking, in certain people's minds, he's got to be a half decent person versus if someone were in that focusing of negativity, looking at another person and going, that's the first person we need to go look at. I could just blend in, generally speaking, in the culture that I grew up in. And I know that sounds weird, but it's actually true. There are just certain perceptions that we can have that are just hard to get past as human beings. If my face were covered in tattoos, this conversation may not have gone on as long as it has. I don't know. I can't control that. Perceptions are perceptions. But in the end, I tell my siblings, I tell my uncle, we hit the genetic jackpot when we were born on U.S. soil. We really did. What if it were 1492? Then it were 1492. If that's the only thing you ever knew, and you knew hard work, and you knew every day you had to go kill what you ate, didn't know anything different, then you wouldn't know anything different. We're sitting in this place. What I'm getting at is it goes back to me honoring that money that my parents gave me. You can squander this, or you can at least not try to make it 1,000-fold, not try to do anything other than just honor it, protect it, hold it, guard it. Isn't that how wealth is transferred from these very rich people who are very powerful? You better believe it is. And here's the thing that they do that most middle class and poor people don't do. They don't teach their kids. They teach their kids about money. They teach them about their businesses. They teach them about trusts, and they teach them about inheritance and beneficiary. Middle class and poor people, not all of them, most of them, they don't do that. And they go, oh, those rich people, those greedy rich people. No. How can you fault them for teaching their children what they know and what they've done their whole lives? That's just the way that they operate. But anyway, I got off on another tangent. I have no idea where we were going with that.
No, I absolutely love these tangents, and I'm getting so much value out of the wisdom that you're espousing. But one thing I wanted to go back on, because it really resonated with me, and I have a lot of curiosity about, is you were talking about the power of kind of being good with yourself and not needing to connect with other people, because it's a really fascinating concept that I've never thought about. The fact that you're needing connection almost means that you're not trusting fully in yourself, or it's actually kind of a selfish thing to want to connect with people. And that's just got the wheel spinning in my head too about how deep that is. Because I feel like as I'm getting older, I do feel less desire to connect with people and more desire to go inward. And it's different than how I've lived my whole life. So I'm just getting used to that change.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to tie it to this power of the dichotomy between connecting with other Bitcoiners, because I thought I was going crazy before I met other Bitcoiners in real life. I was just going through this all on my own, and I was going a little bit crazy. So connecting with other Bitcoiners in real life proved my sanity to myself and felt really good. But you're making me think that it's all related to a need for validation. I needed my thoughts to be validated. Whereas if I had pure conviction, I wouldn't need that validation from other Bitcoiners. I could just be good with everything and be good with myself. And
I think that's good inner reflection. We're lucky. YouTube and podcasts can be a surrogate in a way, right? We have access to content 24 hours a day. That's a good thing for the technical stuff, like the hardware wallet and the air gapping. I don't want to watch a video and do that. I needed another human being live in front of me to walk me through that. And that's a good thing. And the part about wanting to connect with other people, yes. I think in the early days, as in a religion, as in a faith, as in a club, I need validation. I want to be around other people that have been through it, or I can bounce ideas off of. That's fine. But I do know there's no thing in my mind or my consciousness that says one day you're going to be a solo Bitcoiner. That's not even in the conversation. It's just, if I have the conviction to hold and stack at whatever level I choose to, once that's established, and I do the biweekly muscle memory, you got what you need, Greg. Now, doing what we're doing now, I felt like podcasting I just love it. It takes me back to those 2 years in radio. It's about sharing ideas with other human beings. And that's, I think, our superpower over animals is our ability to communicate across space and time. They can't do that. And does God talk to animals? Yes, but in a language we don't understand. How else do they come out of the womb knowing to do things that no one ever taught them before? What's in their DNA? How did all that get there? Who knows? But there's something about us that makes us different than the animal kingdom. But in the end, it's the dichotomy of heaven and hell. We are tribal, yet we have the ability to be that solo operator. But here's the thing about quote unquote modern society. Before modern society, whatever that is, we lived in tribes, we lived in whatever you want to call that. And it was about hunting and gathering, whether it's evolution or creation, does not matter. We had to group up with people to effing survive. That's why we're tribal, because we were forced to by nature to be tribal. That kept us alive. And that was the early beginnings of the human need to have a chief, to have a wise elder in our group that we can go, you have lived many moons. We need to tap into that to not get killed by this, that, and the third. That is still inside of us, no matter how big our cities get, no matter how many quantum computers we build. And that's one of the things that rubs me where I'm like, it shouldn't be who is going to be the next president of the United States. The question should be, why president in the first place? And then it gets to, Greg, you have all the creature comforts of modern civilization, clean, safe drinking water, electricity, indoor plumbing, police, and all. I get all that, but there's a price for all of that. And the price to gather Los Angeles, 2 or 3 or 4 million people, that is not natural, in my opinion. We were not meant to herd like that, right? So when we get back to these smaller units, we may or we may not, I don't know. Guess what goes up dramatically when we live in small units? Accountability to other human beings. We have lost that. And that's one of the costs of modern civilization. Right? I live in a cage made of gold. My cage is better than your cage. Really? What's the difference? We both live in a cage, metaphorically speaking. But we'll argue with that person living in that wrought iron cage because our cage is prettier and it's shinier and it's worth more money. It doesn't matter. You don't have the key and you're not getting out. Or, this is even worse, you have the key in your pocket the whole time, but you don't know you have the key in your pocket the whole time. And what's worse yet is you become aware that you hold the key in your pocket, but you choose not to unlock the door.
Wow.
Then it gets really weird, doesn't it?
This is so deep. I am enjoying this conversation. Yeah, I was not expecting to have this deep of a conversation. You have so much wisdom, and it gets back to what you're saying about the chiefs, how important it is for the chiefs to impart that wisdom to the tribe. And I feel like that's what's going on here. I feel like you've got the wisdom of a chief and you're passing that knowledge on. And that I feel like this is not just a conversation. I feel like this is a soul level transmission that you're providing for.
Yeah. When I listened to some of your content, I knew that you weren't a number go up is fine. We get that. But even the 3-minute clips on YouTube, I'm like, no, he's coming at it from the spiritual angle. And that's a beautiful thing. And there's an audience for that. Yeah. And then there's an audience for just the geek stuff. But if I've learned anything in my life, it's this. I would go to one extreme or the other. I lived in an either or world. Think about it. You're a kid. You go into the store with your mom and she just wants to go in there and grab half a gallon of milk, and you're at the quick stop and the candy's right there by the cash register. They put it there for a reason. And you're like, Mom, can I have a piece of candy? She's like, all right, I know it's a couple hours before dinner, but you can only have one. Hell, there's 15 different colors to choose from. The pressure's on. So we can live in an either or world, right? It doesn't have to be only this or only that. But if we allow people to convince us that it's only this, the red party, or only that, the blue party, do they appear to be coexisting? No. Maybe in their chicanery and their evil? Sure. Because I'd be honest with you, I think they all go to the same cocktail parties, and behind closed doors, they're laughing their asses off. Why? Because they've been running the same scam for so long, and it still works. But more people are waking up, and that's why they appear to be getting nervous. They're like, the game's not working anymore. We need to crank up the illusion machine. And we have to remember that if enough people start waking up too quickly, they will wage war on the population. It's happening in Europe right now at warp speed. When you can't export your imperialism anymore, they turn on their own population. This is all throughout history. It's like a mother eating her own young in nature. That's what's happening in Europe. The CBDC and the ID, it's just a little further along than we are. New York got its first self-avowed communist mayor. Whether that lasts or not, I don't know. And it doesn't really matter. But I do know that we are living in a radical transformation in this country, and it's happening at warp speed. And can you imagine not having any awareness of what we've just talked about and just feeling absolute soul-crushing despair? I'm grateful to be able to have these conversations with people like you, and I don't have them very often, to be honest with you. That's one of the reasons why we can be connected to people in Bitcoin. Maybe we go to the group thing, and that's fine. It's cool to hang out sometimes. But do I feel the need to herd with Bitcoiners? Maybe I do, but the internet has given me the ability to do that sort of as a proxy. You're actually the first Bitcoiner that I've talked to live. I've listened to plenty of YouTube and podcasts, and a little bit too much here lately because I left the bank a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago. I'm retired. My wife said, "You're not going to sit home and watch TV all day." I'm like, "You better back down, woman. You tell me what I'm going to do." Because she's 74 and I'm 56, and I worked for my retirement. I'm like, I've been working since I was 15, whatever. We wake up every day. Here's the beauty. These people that do what they do, I'm not angry at them. Every now and then I'll get a little flare up, these evil bastards, but I'm not angry at them. The bottom line is this. It goes back to the wolf. He's going to keep searching until he finds a sheep because he has to eat. And that's what this has turned into. Government is just consuming the infrastructure of civilization. And it's become a parasite. That's it. Now, if you got a tick on you, here in the South, these big fat ticks, some of them get really big, some of them not so big. That tick's going to just keep feeding off of you until you make a decision that you want to pick it off and get rid of it. And until that happens in enough numbers, I don't know what the number is. What's the critical mass of awareness? When did the American Revolution happen? 2% fought? I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like. But the herd mentality, let's just say it only takes 3% of the population to wake up to Bitcoin. And then all of a sudden there's this crazy, it goes from there. If that's the way it's built, then that's just the way that it's built. Because there's going to be a lot of people that go, things are looking pretty shitty, and you keep talking about this Bitcoin thing. I'm going to buy me a little bit of it. And maybe they just get the hang of it and figure out enough of it to work for them. They're not going to have conversations like this, maybe. Who knows? I don't know why that is the way that it is. I don't really know. But I do know that one of the most powerful teachers for me, and I use it when I share and when I teach, is metaphor. It is everywhere. We were talking about deep space and the cosmos, and most people, they're like, what are you talking about, man? To be able to take the thread and to pull that thread and start at one point and know that everything is literally connected. That's just part of what God put inside of us, that it's just like, God's, look, I'm gonna throw you down in a war zone. Actually, you're gonna go willingly. You went willingly. You didn't go against your will. Me and you were like, let's go to war, man. War, metaphorically. We're gonna go down there. We're gonna experience some suffering. But God said, I'm gonna give you this little ration can. And when you're in your darkest despair, all you gotta do is just open up the lid and just take a whiff, and then you can just close the lid again and remember that this is what and who you really are, and this is where you really came from. That's really the only anchor that we have, isn't it? Knowing that there's got to be something other than this madness and this beauty and this joy here, obviously. I believe that we're going to go through a season in this country. I think we're going to have states secede from the United States. It's going to cause massive upheaval in the population in certain areas. But I think we're going to revert back to where we were when the colonies were the colonies. Not all states are going to want to do it because they're going to be scared. I get that. I understand that. And if they don't, I respect that. I think if your first one to jump ship would probably be a Texas because they got that reputation for being cowboyish. And then everyone has to adjust to that economically, socially, morally. So I think we're going to fragment. Maybe it'll be three or four different zones. But this top-down management is just not working. And they know it, and a lot of people in the general public know it too.
Yeah, I love hearing your insights because I think you're spot on how things are going to unfold. You had mentioned that they're cranking up the illusion because they're getting scared. And yep. I think everyone feels that. You had also mentioned that if things start happening too fast, then they're more likely to wage war against us. So that kind of makes me just appreciative that Bitcoin is unfolding at the pace that it's unfolding. Because I know a lot of us Bitcoiners get frustrated, like, why is the price still here? Why is it not 1 million yet? Why are people not seeing it? But that would actually be the worst thing for Bitcoin probably, is for it to go up too quickly, or for people to catch on to it now, because then we would be in a full-on war. Whereas if it goes slower like this, then we can hopefully prevent this war and Bitcoin can just slowly take over. It's a beautiful design.
It is. And I believe that we have to be aware of the potential that there's a season where there's only the rich and the abject poor in this country. And then I have to look at myself and go, Greg, what if the amount that you currently hold, whatever the number is, irrelevant, puts you in people's perception in the camp of the rich versus the abject poor? The middle class is not going to exist very much longer in the United States, in my opinion. It could go on for another 100 years. That's fine. That's a potential. And it evaporating quickly, that's another potential. If it's going to happen, I'd rather it happen slowly. Why? Because maybe you'll be dead in 20 years. Yeah, I'm selfish like that. I don't want to suffer any more than I have to. And that's a natural human proclivity. But there's wise serpent people that teach people to be ashamed of that. Really? Self-preservation is something I should be ashamed of? Yeah, you should be ashamed of self-preservation. What about you and all the hoarding that you do and the evil that you wage and the money that you create out of nothing and steal the future of my children and my grandchildren and my nieces and nephews? That's not evil? They rationalize all that away. But in the end, it's been this way for centuries. It just looked different. Look at the Egyptian empire. That's just one example. Or China. My God, you talk about brutality, and I don't mean we're better than them. Holy crap, their history goes way back before the history of the United States, centuries into the Chinese dynasties. There was no middle class. You were either dirt frickin' poor or you were somewhere in the immediate circle of the king at some level supporting that whole infrastructure. You know what I mean? And the brutality that was put on people for non-compliance is astonishing. Now, they know they can't ramp that up overnight, but they will boil the frog. I think in that group of whoever they are, I think there's the ones that are like, look, we just need to step out of the shadows and just show them who we really are. I'm tired of hiding. And then there's the ones that go, no, that are smarter and wiser and maybe older and go, you can't do that. You wake too many of them up all at once. We're going to have a problem on our hands. The slaves are revolting and we got a crowd control problem here. But the bottom line is, if a government has to turn on the citizenry to maintain its power, it will. And we have to remember, that's a form of self-preservation. It just happens to be collective. So if I yell at the congressman and say, you dirty, rotten, evil turd, why do you continue to tax me? Because if he stops taxing me, then his job becomes less relevant and potentially completely irrelevant. And that's contrary to his survival mechanism. He has a family to feed. He has grandchildren. He has children. So It's all interwoven. It's this they, okay, fine, versus them, okay, fine. We're all human beings. And in the end, there's really only one question that anyone really has to answer, no matter where they live, no matter how much comfort they do or don't enjoy, no matter how rich or poor they are. And it's one question only. When do we eat next? Everything else is gravy. Everything else is gravy.
Another deep insight. But you talk about this centuries-long battle, and it's been like this for centuries. Does Bitcoin have the potential to break that trend?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And will I live to see that in its totality? If there even is a totality, I would say probably not. But I think you and I are going to get to live in this time in history where we see the amazing beginnings of the birth of this. And I think we're going to be able to benefit from some season of that cycle, because we know there's valleys and there's troughs, right? And I think we're coming out of a valley right now in terms of the potential of Bitcoin. And think about it. Pure capitalism only existed in this country for a very tiny period of time. And people say the most explosive growth in human economic history happened during that time. That unfettered energy of that weapon was unleashed on the world. And then the wise, the truly wise and the truly evil said, we need to figure out how to harness this thing, and we need to figure out how to tweak it. Because I know one thing, this is super important to the banking piece. We throw this word capitalism around all the time. No one on this planet that is currently alive today has ever experienced true capitalism. Not a single human being, not one. And in the United States, what we're living in is when government and corporations team up to game the system. That's fascism. We're living in that. Not full blown, but when we think of fascism, we think of a black and white film with a guy with a little black mustache burning people. That's what we've been indoctrinated to think. It's just a big mishmash now. Is it socialism? Is it communism? Is it fascism? It's whatever works, whatever gets the job done. They don't really care. If you got a plantation full of slaves, you'll tell them whatever they want to hear to keep them compliant, wouldn't you? Does it really matter what they think, what they believe, how they feel, how many children they have, as long as you can make the money and steal their labor from them, which that's what the taxation system is. It's the theft of time and energy. That's all it is. And think about it. If you don't have any debt on your house, that's a good thing. But if you have to pay taxes every year, what is that? You're paying the king rent for the use of his land. No, Greg, it goes to operate government. I get that. But we could do that on 1%, maybe 2%. We've lived in this house since 2013. Our taxes have doubled.
Wow.
But in the end, it's all about energy. You know this. I could hear that in your teaching. It's all about energy. There will be the cunning that capture the energy of others and convince them for their energy to flow to one person's benefit or a small group's benefit. And there will be others who don't do that. And it's always been that way. Think about it. Like if we were literally living day to day in the physical world, if we could figure out how to convince someone else to go hunt for us even twice a week and take all the risks of dying and bring us the food, and maybe they get a little cut, why wouldn't we do that? And then next thing he talks to his friend, and next thing you know, he's got 5 of his friends. Now they're hunting for you 5 days a week. Wouldn't you ramp that up? It's self-preservation. I honestly think as human beings, although we've benefited greatly and civilization really took off after that, I think our downfall, just in terms of the way things have accelerated into the negative, is when we learned to store seed and herd animals, and we didn't have to chase the herd anymore. We were able to hold that seed, which is a good thing. That's what a bank is all about. That's what a silo is, right? But it gave us the ability to save that seed. And that's really the first form of banking, was when we learned how to save seeds. You were wealthy if you had 300 camels or 10 goats, or the Bible talks about that. All the great works in history talk about that. But that's really what it's all about, is how can I contain the energy of this effort into the future? And Bitcoin delivers that in spades, man. Fiat certainly doesn't. It gives us the empty promise of that. Think of how many people in your life don't even understand what inflation is and what it means. It's sad.
Yeah.
Because you love them, man. You want to just tell them, but you can't. It's almost metaphorically speaking, back in the days of the temple, only the holy man could enter into the Holy of Holies. There was like a veil and what. That was all symbolic of only a certain number of people, which I think was just part of the society, can be in the presence of God and commune with God. I disagree, but back then that's the way it was in certain cultures. It's like that. I can't unload too much at one time on one person or they'll explode or it'll just go over their head. Don't cast pearl to swine. It just means don't talk to people who aren't willing to listen. Why do you give your gems away? And I'm terrible about that. TMI, 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 my wife says. Too much information. Yeah, I don't need to know all the details. I'm like, that's how my brain works. But when I get excited about something, you can't not know it because I get excited about it. And when I get passionate about something, oh, holy shit, it is on, man. It is absolutely on. Like my brothers, they're subdued. They're pretty quiet. I'm like, I like that contrast. I'm the talker. They're not the talker. But yeah, do you live in the US?
Yeah. Yeah. I live in California.
Yeah. I grew up in San Diego.
That's where I'm at.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. Spent 5 years in the Navy down there in the Coronado Bay Area. Know how much Navy was there until I showed up for my first day of duty on a ship. But yeah, San Diego, still got a few friends out there in that area. I know there's a lot of change going on there, but it's going on everywhere. Yeah. I left in 93 when I got out of the Navy, moved to the South where a good bit of my dad's side of the family was from. Still living now and just didn't leave. The affordability of housing 25 years ago was astounding in the state that I live in. It's just amazing. But yeah, we're living in, I don't know, we're in a valley in a way, in a big way, we're in a valley, but I heard it earlier today on the podcast, What Bitcoin Did. Can't remember the gentleman's name. He's into the very technical power curve, and he explains it pretty well in normal parlance. He said, it'll go one of two ways. Traditional finance will absorb Bitcoin, or Bitcoin will absorb traditional finance. How that plays out, we don't know. I hope over time, Bitcoin absorbs traditional finance. And with that means the evolution of people's consciousness and awareness enough so that one day Bitcoin becomes the strong primary medium of exchange. And in the end, think about first principle about Bitcoin. What is one of the coolest things? We could say there's 3 things that make Bitcoin the most important thing. I get that. I'm not arguing which one's the most important, but the one thing, the finite supply. Now think about how inverse that is to the nature of what we really are. What we really are is infinite. We never die. But in this world, we fight that. So along comes this amazing technology called Bitcoin, and it's finite. So then there's the paradox. It's finite, 21 million versus fiat, which is infinite. Do you know how many noodles that's going to cook in people's journey of trying to unravel this Gordian knot that we're staring at? It's layer after layer. And I think that irony is the humor of the architect of the universe. God's like, all right, how can I deliver this? How can I embed this? Number one, metaphor will be the vehicle from which they'll learn most of the things I want them to know. But how do I show them my sense of humor? Irony. So powerful.
Yeah, that ties into one of my favorite Bitcoin books. I don't know if you've heard of it, called Abundance Through Scarcity by Yoni Appelberg.
Yes.
Kind of paradoxically, the scarcity shows us our infinite nature.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the traditional finance consuming Bitcoin versus Bitcoin consuming traditional finance, it seems like there is this war going on between the two and who's going to win out. And I've been disappointed seeing how there's these headlines about how whales are moving their Bitcoin out of self-custody and into the ETFs. And it seems like that's a huge win for traditional finance. And it's people basically taking away power from themselves or trusting themselves less and putting the trust back into the traditional finance. And the incentives are there, so I understand why people do it, because it's
Yeah.
the illusion of security. But in my mind, that's us losing this battle.
This ties in beautifully what you just said to what I think will happen in the interim between now and when it's just not a huge pain in the ass to live in this world, at least in the States. And it's happening globally. We know that. This is what I think is going to happen. They know they're just going to keep printing money until literally society just falls apart, in my opinion. History tells us that. Or very close to falling completely apart. We know that, because if they stop printing, it's over. So there's that. And then there's people that have some Bitcoin. So what I think they're going to do is I think they're going to tighten the thumb screws extremely hard on average people, not whale level, average people. I consider myself an average person in terms of the spectrum of how much Bitcoin I hold and all that. I'm reality there. They're going to make life extremely difficult to where fiat wise, you're bankrupted. There's nothing left. You have nothing left. And then you have to burn through your stack just to survive. That I think is going to happen at a certain level. And that's going to be extremely hard. Extremely. Imagine if, a person, and it really depends. What does it depend on? Do they have any debt? And you could just say, just walk away. Just, if it was pure survival mode, just stop paying the credit cards. Heaven forbid we have to stop paying the mortgage. But if it's pure survival mode, a person can literally walk away. And I will remind you and I both that there was a time not long ago in this country when there was a thing called debtor's prison. And if you think for 1 second they won't institute that shit in this country, think again. They only have to target one small segment of the population to go, you see what happens can you imagine if they said only bankruptcy filings are only allowed by corporations, and if you walk away from your debt, you can be arrested and jailed? Some could say that there's not enough jails. You don't need to arrest and imprison everybody. You just pick a small portion of the population and you make an example out of them, and then compliance just ramps right up. There's no telling. And that may not happen, but I do know that we have the potential to see some of that. And the thing that's hard for me sometimes is one layer of the illusion is the strength of patriotism, which is not a bad thing. It's a cultural fabric that can bind us together to unite, to defend against attack, which I think we're going to be forced to do that. But unfortunately, that patriotism is heavily laden with illusion. There are many people that they know nothing of what we speak. They don't know. They know things are getting expensive. That's all they know. Damn the government. But in the end, if you and I knew tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Central Standard Time, nuclear annihilation was going to happen and it was the end of the world, what would we do between now and then? And I know that's an extreme example, but it helps me to remember things. Like if it sounds silly or goofy or extreme, I can remember them a lot easier. In the end, I have to be able to deal with this moment now between that and when that thing happens, whatever that thing is. Nuclear annihilation, Bitcoin goes bye-bye, Bitcoin doesn't go bye-bye. I got to be able to deal with that. So really, it's just like moving from one moment to the next is really all we can do. We can plan, but if there's 400 million people in the US, approximately, something like whatever, 400 million. How many people are in Congress? Less than 500 people. How in the hell did that many people have this much power over 400 million people? The illusion is astounding. My Uncle Steve once said, he said, Greg, the zombie apocalypse, people talk about societal collapse. Did you know that if the trucks don't run, grocery store shelves will be empty in 3 days? And he said, if that happens and things start to fall apart, he said, Greg, it's only going to last a couple of weeks at most, because the longest most people can go without eating is about 3 days. Now, I'm not getting crazy and conspiratorial. I'm just looking at the extreme of what could happen. And it's happened in society. Most people don't even know. They've never fasted for 24 hours, right? But if you imagine 3 days and no food, your neighbors, you'll coalesce with them, try to help each other out, but then things start getting really weird. And the thing that sucks is the illusion of someone's going to come help us, i.e. the government, is going to be completely shattered. And that's when the people around you that you don't know and trust that are close to you are going to be very possibly and potentially dangerous, whether it means physically or indirectly. Think about it. The French Revolution, of which I know very little about, this is what I know about the French Revolution. A bunch of people got pissed off at what the government was doing to them, right? Or the king and his family. They chopped off a bunch of people's heads. Okay, now who's going to run the show? This is what I learned about the French Revolution. Those people that got to the point where they could chop all those people's heads off, they didn't know how to run the show. They ended up giving back all the land and possessions that they seized from royalty, and they gave it back to the family of royalty. And they were right back where they started from. It's like, let's go blow up the nest of where the four-headed snake is. Okay, fine, but do you have the infrastructure to run the show? Do you know how to manage groups of people and help them move in a positive, healthy direction? I know I'm not a leader. I've known that my whole life. I am not like a leader of people. I'm like that individual guy. You put me on the team, you tell me what I need to do, and I can be a specialist if you need me to be. And I'll absolutely be there 100%. I had a 10-year stretch, dude, where I didn't have one sick day at work. Not because I wanted to be the corporate slave, but because I was healthy. I didn't take sick days. But in the end, people, they're like, these billionaires, they're evil. Do you have any idea how much energy it takes to be a billionaire? Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. If that's what you want, then fine. But I don't think anybody gets to a level of a billionaire without some people being taken advantage of at some level. And I know that sounds crappy, but knowing the way the system works, you don't become a billionaire by playing by the rules that average people have to follow. You become a billionaire by herding with this tiny group of people that are literally above the law. And that's one of the things that makes most people mad in America, because they know that's happening, and it's been happening for a very long time. Is hypocrisy is so yucky. Do as I say, not as I do. And that's, I don't know. And really what hypocrisy is, it's ingenuineness. It's being inauthentic and using force to be inauthentic. So I don't know what the breaking point is, if there ever will be one, but I do know there's one thing I will not do. I will not bend a knee to any man or woman in this world ever. I am not a hero. I am not a Wyatt Earp. I am not a man who can handle hours and hours of torture. You just need to execute me, because I am not bowing my knee to anyone. I'm not going to do it. Greg, you do that when you pay taxes. You could say that metaphorically, yes. But if we start reverting in the way it is that we live, going to be some hard choices to make. And I think that's what it means when the old book, the traditions say, pick up your cross. It just means choose the hill you're going to stand on. And if you stick to your guns no matter what and you're willing to die, that's what pick up your cross means. So what hill am I willing to die on? If there was ever a time to be thinking about that, I think that time would be now in this country. But look at history. All fiat lasts, 80 to 100 years maybe? We're a little past that because of the technology has gotten really amazing. Granted, but 1913 to 2025, we're right around in that 100-year, a little past that 100-year range, and it's coming apart at the seams, man. And you know what that tells me? There's something amazing about human beings, whether they're in large herds or small herds, that's consistent throughout time. Because if fiat was amazing and wonderful, they'd have invented it, and fiat would never die.
Yeah, I love everything that we talk about today. I think the main theme is that we are in this spiritual battle, and Bitcoin. One of the main reason why people like me and you love Bitcoin so much is because we just know that Bitcoin is 100% on the right side of the spiritual battle. There's just no doubt that Bitcoin is the right side. We're definitely on the right side of history here. And just knowing that deep in our soul that we're on the right side of history, it's so calming for our souls, I feel like, to know that we're on the right side of history. Deep knowing.
And I think this is really dark, but I think that deep knowing, I have to understand that there may come a time, and I'm not saying it will, that I may be forced with taking that deep knowing all the way to my death. And I don't mean a natural death, a violent, unwelcome death by oppression. That's a possibility. And then maybe that doesn't happen. But either way, I have the conviction It doesn't mean you need to prove to me how convicted you really are. In nature, there's a strong predator and there's a weaker prey, and that's just the way that it works. Zebras don't hang out with lions. Like, they don't socialize together, but they're part of the circle, right? They're part of that circle of life. They're part of that, just that thing that is what it is that we're here to experience. I get that. But in the end, can I look at another human being who I deem to be utterly and repulsively evil and see any good in them? I strip it down to a pretty basic layer and I go, the only kudos I would give a person like that is just the fact that they're a Homo sapien. That's the only credit that I give them. Anything past that, everything's off the table. Is that enough? I don't know. But I do know that a philosophy of turn the other cheek is a good way to die in this world. And it can be used against people. And it doesn't mean that it's a bad philosophy. Whatever the person's belief is, live that belief. Live it to the fullest extent that you feel necessary. But I do know that if someone is, for example, completely against killing another human being, I get that. I understand that. But to me, if I were to think it is utterly immoral to kill another human being, but I got no problem calling the police and telling them to come do it for me, that's a whole different conversation, isn't it? So the ability to kill another human being is nothing but part of the survival instinct inside of us. Because yes, human beings war against each other for food, clothing, shelter, breeding, whatever it is. It's just part of who we are. But for whatever reason, we got thumbs and we got a large brain mass. And it's said, and I don't know if it's true or not, this may be part of the lie. Our DNA is only like 1% away from that of a chimpanzee. We're fairly close in terms of our biology, extremely close, obviously. And it's said that all domesticated dogs in the world have 99% wolf DNA in them. That's pretty cool, right? Like, why did we bond with dogs? Why did we domesticate them? Survival instinct, hunting partner and protection, right? Do we use them? No, we domesticated them. We love them. Not all people treat animals that way, and I think they have an issue, but I love our little dog, Gabby. She's a little Cocker Spaniel. She's 13. She's slowing down a little, but I treat her like another human being. And I used to look at, let's say, somebody who's childless, not by choice, and they have 15 cats. And I used to think, that's crazy. Or they got 10 dogs. I'm like, no, they're sharing their love and they're bonding with another sentient being. Because maybe they can't have children of their own, or maybe they choose to live a secluded life. So softened up on my stance on that over time. And being around a dog, she teaches me, keep it as simple as humanly possible. Because I laugh at the same silly stuff she was doing when she was a puppy that she does now. And that was 13 years ago. Patience, holy mackerel, does she have patience? Patterns are good. Structure is good. And what does she get the most excited about? Food. Aren't we generally the same way? Think of a time when bonding around the food was a big deal, and we've gotten really far away from that. And back in the day, what was it? It was the mantle. It was the fireplace, whether that was outside, in a cave, in a house, it didn't matter. The fire was the bonding place. And we've, of course, gotten away from that now, but it's still there in our DNA. And when did we start pondering the deep wonders of the universe? The second we could look up at the night sky and go, what is that? Wow. Can you imagine, like a blood red moon, all the myth that was built around that? And then we looked at the seasons and we go, oh, the temperature does, this thing grows, that thing doesn't grow. All of that, agriculture, all of it, that's part of the bonding experience of being a human being. And all of that metaphor is still here. It's just has layers on top of it. But like your orange shirt, for example, the sun. And by the way, as an aside, I don't know if you've ever heard of a CME before. It's about solar science. It's a coronal mass ejection. Oh. Supposedly, right around 2035 or 2045 or 2050, we're supposed to have a solar event, a massive solar event, a coronal mass ejection. And some believe through the science that we have the ability to understand, we're talking about an extinction level event. Now, whether that comes to pass, no one will ever know. But to me, it makes the delusion, the Bible, make perfect sense. So imagine, and this is a total aside from Bitcoin, imagine if people at certain levels of deep knowledge that's been passed down through centuries Some of them happen to be in the banking circles or know the families of the banking circles, or maybe they know the Vatican, which has a telescope, by the way. They have a giant telescope. This knowledge has been passed down for millennia. What if they know that solar event is happening somewhere in the next 50 to 100 years? It could be, and I'm not saying it is, one of the reasons why they're ramping up all of the craziness and the oppression, because they know that this thing's going to happen. Only 2% of the population survives. Okay. Why do we have these places in Colorado where the government is dug into the earth? Fine, the nuclear blast, I get it. But what if that happens? There's a solar event, we have a tsunami and all these, and maybe 2% of the population lasts. Who's going to survive that? Uber wealthy people that can dig themselves into the earth and preserve seed, DNA, you better believe it, digitally stored literally everything. Think of the Library of Alexandria on a chip. That is possible to this day. We know this. And maybe they come out however long it takes for the waters to recede, if it's a deluge. And let's say 5,000 people on the whole planet lived. The people coming out of the earth that had the technology when they went into the earth, they're going to eventually be able to go out and find other people. That's going to be the new bloodline, the new kings of the earth. That's going to be the people with the technology that are worshiped by other people because they have the ability to do things that the people that just barely made it had. It makes perfect sense to me. But in the end, does it really matter? No. But there's that survival instinct. So if I got $1 billion, it just means I can do more things, prepare in a bigger way. But in the end, even if I'm a billionaire or if I'm a $100 heir, we're all the same. We all fear the same things, generally speaking. We all have the same wants and needs. We all generally have a connection to other human beings. And that's the great leveling field. And I think that's one of the attributes of Bitcoin that is so powerful that maybe some of us can articulate and some of us can't. It is the great leveling. There is a great leveling that we're seeing unfold right now. And the great leveling is, you fucking prove to me that you're telling me the truth beyond any doubt whatsoever, that you are who you say you are and that you did what you said that you did. And then I will exchange my energy with you. And until you can do that, I have nothing for you. That's the great leveling. Like, are we exchanging equal energy? Because right now the scale is completely tipped. We're getting crumbs. They're getting the lion's share. And again, it's been that way for centuries.
Yeah, you're making me realize that Bitcoin really is about tapping into the survival instinct. And for whatever reason, we were just blessed to be able to see that Bitcoin is about survival. So we've tapped into that, luckily. And it's only a matter of time before other people realize that Bitcoin is a matter of survival. In the same way that you were talking about gold is infused into our DNA. Bitcoin is just so new, it hasn't had time to infuse into our DNA yet. But in my opinion, it's inevitable that it's going to infuse into our DNA and become built into that survival instinct and basically fuse with our DNA at that point.
Yeah, and at that level, from the dust you came and to the dust you shall return, biologically speaking, we could say, okay, we get it. This is just the flesh. And then there's the non-3D part of us. That's cool. I think of the non-3D part of us as the signal. No pun intended. It's the signal. It's coming from home. It's coming from the tower, whatever that is. And this meat suit is just the receiving antenna. And there are certain components of the receiving antenna that vibrate at certain frequencies. And if that certain part of the biology is out of balance and out of frequency, it's not going to receive that signal. And that's what getting in tune and me sleeping on a grounding pad for all these years and the fat and all of these things. It's just about clearing out the gunk if we're able to have the clearest reception that we can. Way back to the beginning of our talk, one of the things that I do daily, not so much lately because I've gotten a little bit lazy on it, is spend at least 15 minutes sitting on the couch early in the morning, eyes closed, and don't worry about whatever the hell it is that crosses my mind or walks across my brain, just meditating. And sometimes it's quieter than it is other days. Sometimes I get a cool idea. Sometimes I don't get a cool idea. But most times after I meditate, the idea that comes that maybe is an idea for a podcast happens when I go for my daily walk. Two laps around the neighborhood is 1.5 miles. And then I walk my dog 1 million times in between. but it's usually the quiet and then the reflecting, and then something coalesces. And it's never A, B, C, D. It's like a piece. It's just a piece. It's like you got 2 ingredients. Now you need to cook a pie. Okay, let's get in the kitchen and cook this pie. And that's what I love about this technology. Like you just create a podcast on the fly, literally on your phone while you're driving or whatever it is that you do. We don't have to walk into a studio anymore. Now, the speed is amazing, but it's also a curse because we don't have to work as hard as we used to have to for things. And for whatever reason, our appreciation wanes when we get into that place. And it goes back to first principle of nature. You have to do the hunting. You have to go out and risk. You have to risk to kill that animal or to grow that plant or to grow that seed. You have to nurture it. You have to take your energy and protect that seed from pestilence, from weather, from invaders. Only then will you yield the crop and consume it. We are all nothing but sunlight. The grass that the cow eats, and then we eat the cow, we're eating sunlight through the proxy known as the cow, through the proxy known as the grass. That's what oil is. It's liquid sunshine. Without the sun, we're nothing in terms of a biological experience here in the 3D world. And there's another thing happening called the polar shift. If you look at the planet as a ball, North Pole, South Pole, and because of what's happening on the sun, and this is literally happening, the poles are they're already shifting, they're moving. And one of the great books says the earth will turn upside down. North becomes south, south becomes north. We're seeing whales and dolphins beaching themselves, migratory animals beaching themselves and dying in levels we've never seen before. And in a way, this is what the climate change crap is about, scaring people and using legislation to get them to do what it is that they want us to do. And I think at a high level, they know that the planet goes through these cycles of these extreme changes, but it's all down to the physics. It's all down to the movement. The cool thing about Bitcoin is you can't rush it. A woman is pregnant and the doctor says, we could go through a 48-hour labor, but you know what? I got a golf game. Let's just induce. And that happens all the time for convenience. You can't rush Bitcoin. They know that. And we know that, right? And all the day traders and the coin people, they're all going to fall away. They're all going to be burned away. And I don't mean that literally, right? If you don't trim a tree down, you got to trim the dead wood from the tree or the tree can't flourish to its fullest potential. It's the same way with Bitcoin. All of the people, whatever that is, they'll either sell it or they won't sell. They'll either squander it or they won't. They'll either gamble it or they won't. But it all gets back down to the physics, right? What's the blockchain? If we didn't have silicon, can you believe this? If we didn't have grains of sand, we wouldn't even have an internet. And if we didn't have grains of sand, we wouldn't have Bitcoin, would we?
That's crazy.
And what does the sand flow through? It flows through the hourglass. And what is the hourglass? Oh, that would be a symbol of time, wouldn't it? And the reason why we can't rush it, and it's set on this timeline, Bitcoin, where it's just slowly doing its thing, it goes back to what Jack Mahler said. The fear of death is what gives us the appreciation of life. When you have to wait for something and you have to put your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and this is what children are. My God, the time and the energy and the love and the attention to shepherd a soul into this world, to the shore of independence, it blows my mind. I've never experienced it before, but that's my choice. That's just my choice. But thank God my parents did that for me. But it's all about time. For whatever reason, Bitcoin is reflecting this thing back to us. You cannot alter this thing. And they will war to try to modify this thing, to try to covet it, to try to contain it. And in the end, we could say, what if when the last Bitcoin is mined in 2040, maybe they'll do something crazy? Nobody knows how this thing is going to shake out. But in the end, all I can hope for is to not die in abject poverty. If I were just talking financially speaking, to just not die in abject poverty. And even then, it'll be what it is. whatever it is, whatever it is. Anyway.
So yeah, you're talking about how important it is to clean the receiver in order to get the right frequency. And that's such a deep concept. And it seems like your receiver is very finely tuned in terms of like your mindset and your energy. And I've just recently become more aware of like our inputs, what thoughts we allow in, and it's not just taking in everything and having no conscious thought about that. We are actually so powerful in terms of we can curate what we allow in. And so I'm just curious, what kind of things do you allow into your life on a daily basis?
Generally speaking, this is an absolute, I don't read any fiction. It doesn't mean it's bad. I know there's beautiful fiction in the world. I read it as a younger man. I don't read any fiction. If it's fiction, I'm not interested in it. What do I consume? I like to do the buffet style. Go in, you see what's on the table, get what I need, put it on my plate, consume it, digest it, benefit from the energy, and then when I'm hungry, I go back to the buffet. But the overload of information and data that is because of the technology, which can be used for both good and bad, as all things can be, it's easy to get lost in that. And even before it's easy to get lost. It doesn't really matter what it is. If we're going to get lost, we're going to get lost, right? If we're going to get distracted, we're going to get distracted. But what I do is I don't have any magazine subscriptions. I've got a couple of subscriptions very specific to a lot about geopolitics, trying to just have a general idea of what's going on at the bigger picture. And then another one is more very scientific. Dr. Jack Kruse, who turned me on to the blue glasses, which I have on right now. They're readers, but they also block the blue light because I've been sitting in front of a computer screen for 27 years. So hopefully I don't have any cancer brewing. If so, it is what it is. But I think it's really about when a person starts to consciously choose to filter out a lot of the noise and go, okay, I'm just not going to be around that. What happens over time, if they choose to exercise this muscle, is the discernment gets strong. If you're a TV watcher, I gave up TV many years ago. My wife did, coincidentally, around the same, probably before me, before we even met. Get away from TV for a very long time and go back to it. It's almost like listening to something in a foreign language. It's almost hideous. It was to me to watch a sitcom. I'm like, oh my God. So filtering things out, it strengthens the power of discernment. And then if I have to dip my toe into that shallow pool of watching a news program to maybe I need to learn something, you can call bullshit within 60 seconds. It's not a up here thing. It's more of a down in here thing. And then sometimes it's a little bit of this and a little bit down in here, but it's almost instant. Like I can hear the Secretary of the Treasury start to talk. I don't even need to hear what he's saying. Just look at the countenance of his face. That man looks constipated and he looks nervous. He does not look relaxed. And I'm not being mean to him. I don't know him. I'll never meet him. But I know there are times when he's lying to me. But the thing of it is, in all lie is some truth. And we have to weed that shit out of the garden. We got to really, when we look at that little patch and we go, all right, what's poison in here and what's healthy for me? And I'm not saying I'm amazing at it. It goes in fits and starts for me. But if it's about banking and maybe it's something over my head, maybe it's something I don't know anything about. I listen to Jerome Powell now and it's nothing up. It's just vacuous. He's just vomiting. It's just, he might as well be talking about the ball game. It's so pointless because it took me a long time. It's like there are people that think he's the most powerful man in the world and nothing could be further from the truth. He works for somebody, as does the president, as does all of the people in DC. They all get somebody, they work for somebody. I don't know who that somebody is. I don't care who that is. But the discernment is beautiful. And it doesn't mean we nail everything and get it every time. But you're like, man, that guy's full of shit. He's totally lying. But that's what's pumped into us on these channels 24/7, 3. Ted Turner's the guy that came up with 24/7 news, right? What he was doing, I don't know. Maybe he just wanted to make a bunch of money. Who cares? But I do know that here's an example. We think of water as being absolutely essential to life, and it is. That someone can die of water poisoning. If they consume too much in too short a period of a time, it can kill them, and most people don't know that. News is the same thing. It's just a slow toxification and a slow mental and spiritual death. My stepdad lived in a pretty strong daily news cycle paradigm. He'd get off work every day. So he was a wonderful provider, loved him. When he died, all of us kids were at peace. We were able to spend time with him and everything. But he watched mainstream news for year after year, every night, and he'd fall asleep to that. And then he'd get up, go to sleep, go to bed. And he was stuck in that paradigm for a while. As he got towards the end of his life, I noticed he started to shift a little bit. And he said something to me that I'll never forget. He fought in the Vietnam War. And just out of the blue one day, something came up about the VA or something, I don't remember. And he said, Greg, he said, Vietnam was a stupid war. And I didn't say anything. It's just let that space be what it is. Let that quiet be what that is. And I can only imagine how he felt because he went over there and he risked his life. He slept in the rice paddies. He was a grunt, man. He was out on the ground having to get shot at and stuff. But in the end, when we're in the presence of someone who is highly receptive and who happens to coincidentally be highly evil, when you have the power of discernment and they look you in the face, in the eye, they know instantly that you are aware. They will turn away from you and they will not bother you. Doesn't mean they won't try to pull some shit. It may just do it without you being physically there, but they know. And that just is what it is. It's the same thing in the animal kingdom. Certain animals have certain levels of camouflage and all these other things, and they're all just trying to get along and live to eat another day. But people that are highly intelligent, that's one of the reasons why sociopaths ascend to high levels of government and military at some level, and especially the three-letter agencies, is because that's what it takes to be in that space, to do what it is that they do. And it just is what it is. But it's like the power of discernment for me, I just use it when it's needed. If I'm going to listen to some news, maybe I want to learn a certain thing, I'll be like, okay, I hear that. But the beautiful thing I think about the power of discernment is when we can start to connect the dots like that. We don't know all of it instantly, but we no longer spend 2 weeks wondering, what is this and that? And why are those two? It starts to coalesce over time. And I think over time, that's what wisdom is. We see the connection between all of these moving parts, not every connection, and we don't know everything, but we know enough to know what to stay away from and what to gravitate to. And all we can hope to do is teach that to our children. Because we know we don't want them to spend 70 or 80 years not knowing that snake is poisonous, not knowing that's a trap door. Avoid these things and you'll increase your chances to live another day and eat and procreate.
Yeah, I've heard that before. That's basically the key to life right there, is being able to sense high vibrational energy and low vibrational energy. And it gets back to that tuning analogy that you gave. Once you can feel the energy, life is very simple. You go towards good energy, away from bad energy. So then it's all about tuning that signal and making sure you're able to sense the energy. So it's such a deep concept.
Think of the battery. You got the positive and the negative pole, and it's just doing this. There's always an equal exchange of energy. The ledger is always rectified. And banking, it's not being rectified. It's one movement of energy at one level and a movement of energy at a completely disproportionate level. That's why we're out of balance. Instinctually, all humans know this at some level because we are sentient beings. We are aware of our own awareness. We're aware of our own existence. So the tuning fork is in there. You know, how sensitive it is a completely different story. But these people at this high level that have done these things as long as they've done, and these banking dynasties literally of 500, 600, 700 years, I have respect for them as apex predators because I know they have the ability to eat me. I know they do. You talk about dedication to your craft. Oh my God, they never stop. It's just what they do. I actually thought for a brief moment in time, is it possible for a human being to be soulless? And then I thought, no. And then a friend of mine said, no, it's just possible for a person, obviously, to have a soul, but to be extremely out of touch with it. Just totally living in the 3D world and in their head. That's how a serial killer can do what a serial killer does. Completely disconnected from empathy, completely disconnected from sympathy. like totally detached from the pain that they're inflicting. But in the end, we know they're projecting the way they feel about themselves when they murder people, because that's what they think they deserve. You can't stop that. You can't love the evil out of someone. If they have evil intent and they've made their decision, in that moment, you can't love that out of them. You either stop it or you just get out of the way.
That's a pretty crazy concept that the apex predators have the ability to eat us. I haven't really thought about it on that level, but it's so true. And that kind of is terrifying to know that we're at the whim of these apex predators that have the ability to eat us. And that's also what makes Bitcoin just so brilliant, in that it's the one way that we can actually potentially overtake these apex predators, because we can't just fight them, because then they'll just kill us right away. So we needed to have this insidious thing to work its way in. And it's mind-blowing just how brilliant the concept of Bitcoin is in terms of taking down the apex predators.
Yeah. And back to that analogy, in nature, you have a wolf has a territory, and physically it can only have so big of a territory. And in times of famine or low level of food, it will expand its territory if it has to, but it can only expand it so far. There's limitations because they have to eat, and the mother will eat and consume the meat whole, go back to the den, and then vomit it up and feed its babies. Like, you can't go 300 miles and hunt and come back. There's limits. But as humans, because we're in large groups, you can herd people. And I don't mean like physically cause them to move into a city, but you can convince them to leave their farms. My dad's parents came from an agrarian society. If you didn't grow it, you didn't eat it. My dad said, Greg, when I was growing up, if we didn't grow it, we didn't eat it. And if we hadn't left that sharecropping farm and moved up north where there was factories, we would have starved. There were 7 kids. Only one of them was born in a hospital. He's like 63. That's my uncle in Alaska. So when you have people in crowded cities, you can harness their energy in mass. It's just about efficiency is all it is. And that's what banking, because of the technology that we now have, think of how slow it was when all we had was ships, and you can read the history of money and how everything changed. But when they did double accounting, that changed everything. And it was really about distance. We're going from China to wherever, and we're trading spices and whatever it is that we're doing. They had to come up with some sort of a bookkeeping system, and through the natural proclivity to improve things and make things more efficient. But there's always going to be people that game the system. And all it is, how can I steal some of this person's energy without them knowing it? Or if they have an idea that I'm doing it, do it in such small quantities over time that they don't get too pissed off about it. The stealing is just ramping up. That's what the inflation is, and that's what the increase in the taxation is going to be. Yeah, we're living out of balance with nature, and religious people will say God will punish those. I don't care how a person words it, but I do know I can talk to anyone of any faith generally and know we're talking about the same thing. We just need to understand what the metaphors are in the culture that we grew up in so we can have a conversation. I don't care what religion anyone is. And if they have a religion of violence, I don't want to have any conversations with them. There's nothing there for me. No fruit will be born of that. If you are in a religion of violence, whatever that is, or even an ideology of violence, or even in a vibration of violence, and that's what you think you need to do is kill other people to get them to understand you, or to go do your thing. And there will always be the weak. There will always be the weak. And we try to shield the animals in nature from that sometimes because of our level of compassion. It's like when you see a baby deer in a field all by itself, it's not wounded. Maybe it's nestled down. And I've seen this. 2 baby deer were in this little field across the parking lot from the bank I worked at. It was just an empty field. And they were nestled, both of them, right next to each other. I know not to walk out on that field and try to pet one of those deer, because if the mother smells me, she'll abandon it. But we don't want them to get hurt. We don't want them to try to cross the road and get killed. We have to let nature run its course. When we build cities, we clash with nature. We do. And it's this constant balancing and the ebb and the flow. And I think of everything we're doing as human beings, not in a shaming way. I was really hard on humans, but say I was hard on me. Like, hey, damn Americans, man, we're too spoiled. It is what it is. But I think of all of this as water. You pour it down into the ground, what does it do? It goes to where it becomes perfectly level. No matter how long it takes it to get there, it's always seeking that balance. And then it goes up through the ground, ends up in the clouds, and it's just a continuous cycle like that. What are we, 80% water or something like that? 89, whatever it is. Yeah, man, this is, to me, there's really not a whole lot worth talking about other than the things that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, that's exactly why I started this channel. This is really just the most important thing happening in the world right now. What else would we be talking about other than the deepest spiritual battle that's ever existed, that's been going on for all of humanity?
Yeah, and I think that the battle has always gone on, and only because of the technology do we feel that humans are becoming more evil. No, that propensity has always been there. That potential has always been there. And it's part of the way the architect built it. Who am I to say you shouldn't have built it this way? We can just see it all over the world now, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the news. I don't want to know what's going on in Oregon. I don't want to know about a bank robbery. I don't want to know about a plane crash. It has nothing to do with me. It doesn't mean that I don't have empathy for anyone that was hurt, murdered, whatever it is. I have friends in California. Okay, I'll listen to that story in San Diego. Oh, the town I grew up in? Yeah, I'll listen because I got friends there still. But do I want to know what's going on in Ireland? Not really. It doesn't mean that I don't care. I care about people, but I cannot care. Excuse me, I can care. Somebody taught me this. I can care, but I don't have to mind. What does that mean? Does that mean you're passive and you let people do evil things? No. What it means is I can care and be a compassionate and caring human being about those people and what happened to them, but I don't let it occupy my mind. It isn't necessary because human beings are always going to murder one another at some level. And I think that the percentage of those people is minuscule, but media wants us to believe it's way bigger than it really is. And then there's that amplification. And then if I listen to that and my tuning fork is weak or smothered or bent or whatever it is, and I'm vibrating in that energy, what do? I start creating realities in my mind of how the world operates and who you are and how you think about me. I know what it's like to live inside of my head. I couldn't shut it off. That's no way to live, but we all go through our journey. I'm not a nature person, but we have a pretty good little bit of squirrels here. We get a few deer every now and then. Once in a blue moon, you'll see a raccoon. I look at those squirrels and they're just beautiful and they're amazing and they're funny as hell. When they're babies, they bark at each other. They make little barking noises and they play. And I know people, they're like, those things are filthy, disgusting rodents and they carry diseases. Shoot them. And I'm like, everybody's different in the way they look at it. We have a perspective about Bitcoin that some don't and some never will. And it doesn't mean anything other than it's one more item on the buffet table. Some choose to partake, some choose not to. Now, if I'm starving and haven't eaten for 4 days and I walk into the buffet line, anything's game for me. I'll take the first plate I see, other than a raw onion. I can't really stomach a raw onion. I'll be open to just about anything. But if I've been fat and sassy for about 2 weeks, I'm going to be a little pickier. Try a little this, try a little that. So it really depends on the situation. I do know that truth is truth. I don't mean stuff in a courtroom and 15 people said it happens this way. Truth is truth. At the deepest level, truth is truth. And the cunning of the world, they have one job and one job only in their mind. Either distort that, not the actual truth itself. They can't distort that, but they can distort the lens with which you choose to look through by watching TV, whatever it is. And if they can do that, this is the way they think. If you're dumb enough to fall for that shit, I'm going to continue to exploit you. And so it is in the world.
Yeah, you've dropped so many profound insights in this discussion. I'm deeply grateful. We're coming up on
likewise
3 hours. Is there anything you wanted to add before you wrap it up?
No, yeah, my throat's getting a little bit sore, so I'd say we're at a good stopping point for sure. Yeah,
I have so much appreciation for you coming on, and you
as well
absolutely blew my mind today. So thank you for what you shared. And yeah, the world is blessed to have these ideas, and hopefully you decide to share more of your ideas, because I think your ideas can help shape the world into what we envision it.
Yeah, I'm not per se a religious person, but It's just so amazing to be alive. I think really the work that we're here to do in the smallest sentence humanly possible is to come here and experience both the beauty and the horror at the same time. And just watch that unfold for how many ever years we live. Who was it that said, I can't remember what it was that they said. It was about, they said, happiness is not the absence of suffering. It's the ability to deal with it. It's the ability to get through the suffering. That's a big part of it. And just thank God to the architect of the universe. Metaphor after metaphor, paradox after paradox, mystery after mystery, Gordian knot after Gordian knot, and one laugh after the next laugh. Can you imagine life without humor? It would be pretty hard to stomach. But do I want to change the world? No. Do I want to change me? Not the essence of me, because I can't. That's unchangeable. Do I want to change my thinking? Certainly, in certain things. Do I want to change my behavior? Certainly, in certain instances, absolutely. But all that really is changing my approach to perceiving, to witnessing, to being the witness of this. And it's not about what's going on out there that I'm being the witness to. You said this earlier. It's about being the witness of what's going on inside of me. And being like, you know what? Like my mom, unconditional love doesn't even describe how that woman lived her life. Oh my God. Discernment, yes. Not tolerating bullshit, definitely not tolerating bullshit, but love you no matter what. No matter what. And I've had people say, how can you not hate that person? It's because my parents didn't teach me to hate. It doesn't mean that I love and hug everybody. I have to recognize evil when it's standing in front of me. But they didn't teach me to hate people because of the color of their skin, none of that crap. Get a little miffed maybe. Man, what are these people doing? Why do they do that? Whatever, but not to hate, that's for sure. And I think a little bit of just, I don't know. I don't know the answer. And as a younger man, I thought I needed to know all the answers, and it was incredibly frustrating. But it's like, if you knew all the answers, Greg, you wouldn't get the gift of asking the questions anymore now, would you? Oh, see, that's a whole different conversation now, isn't it? That's the game. That's the mystery. Not what's the answer? Give me the answer. I want the answer. No, you have to do the work. You have to show me proof of work. Knowledge is not free, and it isn't painless either. Thank goodness. Because if it were, it wouldn't have any value. We're good, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a great place to wrap up. And yeah, it was an absolute pleasure to meet you.
Absolutely. You too. I didn't turn on I've got a light that's pretty blaring, and it's getting a little bit dark here, but not too bad. But hopefully, I think the lighting's still okay.
Yeah, it still looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's all good. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Now, do you have the Signal? Is that a podcast, or is that just the moniker that you use?
Yeah, it's a podcast, but I only post it on YouTube. I've been meaning to post it on other things, but it's just on YouTube right now.
It's all good. It's all good. I catch your snippets over there on your Dr. Satoshi. That's good enough for me, man. You just do what you do, and I'll keep checking it out. It's always great, even if it's in small snippets. Yeah. I'm the type of guy, if the content's good, I'll watch 2 hours of it. I may break it up into pieces, go for a walk, go grab a sandwich, whatever. But and the snippets are good. I think they draw people in. But think about it. Listen to 2 or 3 minute clips. I'm like, I need to reach out to that guy.
Yeah.
That guy's got an awesome vibe going on.
I'm glad you're getting value out of what I'm putting out there.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah. So keep cranking it out, man. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Yeah, take care. Have a good day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of The Signal. In a world drowning in noise, signal is everything. Most people are overwhelmed, distracted, and deceived, not because they lack intelligence, but because they've lost the ability to discern what truly matters. But signal cuts through the noise. And Bitcoin is pure signal. It doesn't promise. It doesn't lie. It doesn't bend to opinion or propaganda. It just is. And as the world descends into even more chaos, distraction, and distortion, your ability to identify signal, to recognize what's real, true, and timeless, will be one of your greatest assets. So stay sharp, stay sovereign, stay tuned, because here on the Signal, we don't follow trends, we follow truth. I'm Dr. Satoshi, and in a world of noise, we are the Signal.